Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fight Night Rising, the first on set 4.5. Excited to bring you some 4.5 action, and of course, alongside me, as always, Boopasaurus. How are you feeling? How are you feeling going into set 4.5 together?
I am so excited, Khroen. I feel like it's almost been like a set 4.5 waiting room for the last
Yeah.
couple weeks, and I've been like looking for like this day has been circled on my calendar to get my first kind of real competitive look at what set 4.5 has to offer.
Definitely. And before we get too much into, the nitty-gritty on detailing what it is exactly we're excited about in 4.5, let's introduce the players that are going to be competing here tonight. We have Infernix, meechygnarko, and Gunmay back from last time, and accompanying them we have Drownedgood, IceBarriers, Laplace Tails, Numano back once again, and Riku back once again as well.
I am so excited to see Numano and Riku back in the same lobby. So a little bit of history before we move on is Numano was here for about 7 weeks, and I think won 6 of those weeks,
Yeah.
6 or 5 of those weeks. And then Riku and a couple other guys came in and knocked Numano out. So the last time Numano got knocked out was when Riku won that lobby. So there is a little bit of history there between a couple of our players, but I believe almost everyone here, other than IceBarriers and Tails, has actually top and Drowned has top 3'd in a previous fight night before. So this is a pretty good start to set 4.5 in terms of player ability as well.
Definitely. And of course, all of these very, very top high skilled players going to be competing for their portion of the prize pool. As usual, $100 for first place, second place, 50, third and fourth is $25 a piece, but only the top three will be invited back for next week. But yeah, talking about those players once again, there's a lot of solid players here, but we can't go without saying, as always, these new players, there's a chance for them to come out and really surprise. And it's impressive to do that versus a lobby of, say, what, like five, like really, really strong players, and not
Mhm.
only Fight Night Rising events, but just in the TFT competitive space in general.
I totally agree, but like this is where you get your start, right? Numano actually, I think, is a really great example of that. I believe when he first started on Fight Night, the Twitter followers weren't quite where they were at. The fact that he was competing in the qualifiers on Mondays here on Giant Slayer pretty frequently. This is a really great jumping off point for a lot of people. And I think at the beginning of each set, we kind of emphasize this that if you want to do something in the competitive space of TFT, this is where most of you start, right? You
Oh
can go
yeah.
to one of those 256 person tournaments, right? But if you're a challenger, right, and you're able to sign up and get going with other people at your same rank, this is going to mimic more of that tournament experience for you and get you ready for those next steps. It's also going to introduce you to a lot of other people in the community, and this is just like a wonderful community in general. So when you're new and you're coming into Giant Slayer, don't be afraid because new people have won these lobbies before. Remember the very first week Numana came in here, he won by like 13 points or
Yeah.
something like that. So it can really be anybody's game. But the person we're looking at right now, Numano, I would say is the favorite tonight based off of the history that he's shown here on Fight Night Rising. And I'm really excited to see if that's going to ring true through a new set. All of what I just said was on set 4, right? So now that we're on set 4.5, things might change, but we'll see.
We will see indeed, but you can't count out a player at the top of the player list right there, Gunmay. Gunmay, of course, is the Olaf mastermind. I am sure we're going to be seeing some Olaf, Slayer compositions from him here tonight. And are they going to be able to match up against whatever Numano and others have kind of cooking up here? Numano did opt to start the game with a rod. I think just quickly going over some meta choices that a lot of players will go towards. I know Chain Vest is a very popular item. You can build it into Sunfire. You can build Bramble. You can build GA. Maybe even Locket if you're feeling like that as well. Those are some pretty flexible items. I know some players generally only are like, all right, Sunfire or Bust, but still a pretty flexible item if you're not going to be holding that extreme of beliefs here. But Numano can end up with a double rod and a sword here.
All right, so we're going to be starting off with a potential Hexatech Gunblade, but we still have an NPC round. And I think what you were doing, Khroen, is exactly what a lot of these players had to do when the new set came out is All right, the beginning stages of the game are going to be a little bit different, especially now. The items that you're going to try to go after are also going to be slightly different. If you were
Yep.
saying, hey, Chain Vest is going to be the thing that people want in last set, you'd be like, okay, maybe if you were like fourth pick on Carousel, right? I mean, it can build into a couple useful things, but not as important as I think is what it can build into now. I don't know if you've noticed, but on ladder, Brawlers are doing well, Elderwood
Yep.
is doing well, so HP is doing well, which means that you're going to need that Sunfire Cape to burn through a lot of that HP,
Yeah.
especially if they have healing to back them up as well. As we get a chosen brawler Maokai, you ask and you shall receive, Khroen. We're
Yep.
looking at a couple brawlers right now. And before you start too, the thing that we're also going to see is, I believe, static comps or 6 duelists, like a couple of depths, are much stronger now than they used to be, which I think is great for beginner players coming into this set. So I think it's a pretty good time to start playing on this set specifically, because with Elderwood and Brawler, you could kind of go in and out of both of those in a couple different ways, and I'm interested to see where Numano is going to go with it.
Definitely. There's a lot to digest here, actually, with just it being a new set and all. But I'll start with, you mentioned Numano has the potential for a Gunblade right now. We really only, I think, we'll see Gunblade built on Aurelion Soul. That's definitely one of Aurelion Soul's best in-slot items if you're going that, that Mage Elderwood really focused composition there. I really want that Elderwood spat for the Aurelion Soul, but that's a little bit tricky to always consistently get. Brawlers, on the other hand, they're really, really good in the early game now. They have been changed a little bit, so now that not only will they be provided health, but they'll also be provided with bonus attack damage. 2 of them gets you 10 extra attack damage, but 4, as Numano has right here, gives you 20 extra attack damage, and that will add up in the early game. Brawlers were good in early game before, but they're going to be even better now, and that's why, exactly as you mentioned, Sunfire is going to be key to have burn all that HP down, try to mitigate all of that Numano repositioning, because Numano is going to be trying to win every single round here if he can. He's sweating super hard in all this positioning.
Yeah, Numano, mega flexible player as well. We've been able to see Numano successful in a lot of things. Again, though, a lot of people can be flexible in one set and they tend to stick on something else on another. Khroen, and you got really into Blade Masters near the end
Yeah.
of your tournament time, and you used to be quite flexible. So, like, it really depends on. You still might be, I don't know, but it really depends on what kind of player and how the set speaks to you. So we're seeing a couple newer units here. So we're probably going to start from the bottom on the beginners aspect and kind of start building, since this is a newer set. And we see the brawlers, but we're also seeing some Dragon Souls on the bench. Spirits have been taken over with assassins lately. Diana, very good, strong
Yep.
one cost right now. I don't know if you're watching Soju, but he swears to God there are 29 Dianas in the set. But yeah, a lot of different opportunities here. Even though we're showing this brawler setup, what's on the bench is actually something a little different.
Yeah, definitely. Leaving the options open. I mean, already with the brawler chosen, I'm sure if you randomly roll a lot of Dianas, you could pivot into that. I think Gunblade is an item that does work well on Diana as well. I've mentioned Early Star earlier, but there's a couple other units that it can quite find use on. Gunmay, on the other side of the board here, someone who I think is probably Numano's biggest competition here today, has a chosen Maokai of his own, and it looks like is going to be perhaps a bit beefier with those brawlers here. Leveled up Tom Kench. It's going to be a 2v1 here. The rod on Numano's Maokai is not going to be enough, and Numano loses the streak. Gunmay, not on a full streak, is 98 HP, but yeah, no one actually 100 HP already on the carousel. So
That's
this is,
varied. Yeah, that's a lot.
yeah,
Usually just by the chances, like the statistics, I feel like you're gonna get someone who hasn't lost. It's only been 3
yeah.
rounds, right? But I mean, maybe that's just a little bit of a magnifying glass or future, a glimpse into the future of what we're going to see today, as things
Mhm.
are pretty tight already. So now, right, we've kind of talked about what the set has, some things that we will see later. We'll probably see a Lucky Lantern at some point. We'll get really
Yep.
deep on those things specifically when they come. But now we're transferring into like the end stages of the early game. We got some spats on the board as well, so you can kind of assume that those are either going to become Elderwood spats or potentially a Vanguard spat for Samira later on. But what are we kind of looking at right now? What would you say on stage, 2-5 to 3-4 is going to be a comp that you're going to want to try to reach for and stay in the top 4?
As of right now, I mean, I think we're seeing it from a few players here as Numano scouts around. There's going to be a lot of brawlers in the game currently. If you're able to find a Morello's holder, it is decent. Like we saw that TF on, I'm not sure whose board it was, but it's going to still be decent. That can pivot into a Morgana later on. Riku having a spirit here. If you're able to early enough find a chosen Teemo, I'm assuming that's going to be Spirit chosen. It can be Sharpshooter as being an item holder. Still going to be a great pickup there. Spirit is actually pretty good now, whereas Spirit was kind of like, it was a thing for a little bit previously, but it was very, very niche. Now it's just a solid synergy. It just will flat provide, 20 attack speed for, I believe, for 2 spirits and the 40% attack speed for that 4 spirit. And it is going to be a spirit chosen Teemo here for Riku. Riku off to a pretty solid start. Notably, those items in the front line there, that belt and the vest, have not been made into a Sunfire. They might be right now, however, as that Shyvana is sold off. And yep, there we go. Sunfire on the Tahm Kench. A really good early game item, especially when you're in Riku's position, when you want to preserve that win streak before this neutral round comes forward. Puts in even a couple of Vanguards on top of that. Vanguards got a bit buffed as well. They provide MR as well as armor now. There's so many changes. It really changes up the whole dynamic of TFT and how you play. It's actually really fascinating to like kind of dissect this and get a chance to cast it to see how players are adjusting to all this.
Yeah, it seems like they have invested a little bit more power on defensive stats,
Yeah.
to start out on, and I think that is why things like Elderwood and Brawler are successful, right? They aren't what they used to be, right? And if you're wondering, and you haven't read the notes like a lot of us don't, right? It's you know that they're going to give you health, but maybe you didn't realize that the attack damage is there, and you're like, why do I keep losing against this team with no damage, right? Well, because they're getting damage, and same thing with Vanguards. At the beginning of the set, there is this crazy Vanguard Mystic comp that was quite good, especially against Aurelion Sol, because Aurelion Sol was taken over the game, still kind of is. But what they're going to be looking for now is, especially with Spirit, and what you said about Spirit is exactly right. It's solid. It is probably, you can make the argument that Spirit is the most consistent trait right now.
Yeah.
You're putting your 2 Spirit and you're going to get something out of it. Dazzler kind of got there for a little bit last set with Ezreal and Lux or Morgana, but now I think it's the Spirit, because the other thing about the Spirit units is all of them individually are pretty good units themselves. So, you got Teemo and you got utility, you got damage on tankiness with the Diana, and so you've got utility with Yumi as well. So there's going to be a lot of options to fit in those spirits into whatever kind of comp you want, right? It doesn't have to be assassins. It can be mystics. It can go into whatever you want, but there is a fine line of spirits are really good top 4 comps, right? Winning with the spirit comp is going to take a lot of luck, in my opinion, but it'll get you there. And I think that's the most important thing to know.
I think the only spirit comps I really see having a chance to win lobbies, at least typically, is going to be with Diana chosen, getting that Diana 3 online, getting some assassins in there, or Zed. Actually, Zed can do a very similar thing with 4 spirit, a few slayers on top of that as well. Z3 actually I think is pretty solid at this point right now. Riku selling the Dianas off, so not want to commit to that spirit route. Gonna pick up a Pike instead. There actually is another Shyvana on the board now. That previous one was sold just to make the Sunfire, but she's actually another unit that's going to be pretty solid in the kind of like early mid-game stages here. She'll do a lot of damage, and she can actually scale well into late game as well if you put some items on her. She's the kind of Shyvana of old, I believe, from way back when. A little bit reminiscent of that.
And usually I would say if you want to lose LP, you can do this. But if you want to put a mage cap on her, especially in the early game, really fun. Not going to scale later on, especially when she yeets herself into the enemy team because she needs to jump twice. But it totally works, guys. And right now we're actually looking at top 3 people on fire. One of them will fall here, and it's looking like Riku is going to be the one, unless that Teemo starts popping off. And that it does. That blind is so strong, like together with the Dragon Soul buff. Why don't you go ahead and talk about Dragon Soul a bit?
Yeah, the Dragon Soul is very, very interesting, actually. The Tristana, you might not have thought, but she actually had the highest damage output there. And that Dragon Soul trait will, what is it? Yeah, it blesses the allies. If you have 3, it'll bless 1 ally for 40 attack speed and spell power. So it's a pretty a pretty sizable buff if you are able to fit 3 Dragon Souls in. I don't think you're usually able to, fit them in at this point in the game, but having that Braum, Tristana, and Shyvana in at this point in the game, Riku's kind of playing best board here, but super, super well. If you look at the synergies on the left-hand side there, it's, perfectly 3 Dragon Souls, 2 Vanguard, 2 Brawler, 2 Spirit with the Teemo Chosen, and then 2 Sharpshooter with that Tristana there. So yeah, this is real solid there. That buff, does a bit of damage as well. It's just overall really, really solid.
Well, it's also really good against things like Declaw or anything that is going to mitigate percent health. It's good against Divine, right? Because it's going to be
Yeah.
able to do a good flat amount of damage. Sorry, everyone, if you can hear my dog. I swear she's trying to kill me. I'm safe down here, though. Anyway, Riku is going to be looking at the rest of the board. We have a couple assassin players. I saw 6 cultist already as we're moving through. Our cultist player is actually in second place, and that's Drownedgood. Everyone else doing your, I think, general early game. You got some 3 mages, you've got some Dragon Souls, and now we're looking at Drownedgood and 6 cultists. So this is one of those static comps that did get better, especially in the early game. I think Sivir is a pretty solid unit. It's attack speed and damage. You can fit in sharpshooters kind of as a splash to help you get some damage into the back line. But what cultists are going to be able to do is move into keeper as well, keep you pretty safe. And keepers can take you into the mid to late game. I think what this particular set is forcing you to do is choose between your static, I'm going to keep to 6 to 9 cultists, or I'm going to go Bill Gates and do something a little bit more similar to last set. That's kind of, I think, where the argument is right now on which is better and which should be better.
Yeah, definitely. We get our lucky lantern here. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about Drown God's 6 Cultist. I think 6 Cultist is not something that a lot of players will generally try to go for, but if you hit the units early, like that Chosen Pike there, sure, go for it. 6
Yeah.
Cultist is not only really solid in this mid game, but it also can pivot into pretty much anything, I would say. Like, it's super, super flexible in that regard. You don't really need to keep any of these units. I know, Rakan, you might keep depending on what composition you want to go for. Rakan, even after the nerfs, I think is still a solid unit there. Was a bit overtuned for a while, but yeah, when that 6 cultist Galio slams down at this stage of the game, like, there's not much people can do against it. The GA was slammed as well, putting on that Vladimir just to item hold. And well, the TF's in the corner, it's going to do a lot. I think when the Galio gets over there, should be able to take this out.
Yeah, even if it doesn't, the Vladimir should be fine anyway. And one thing that people don't realize, I think, about Cultist is that the game gave you a support unit in Cultist, and its name is Vladimir.
Yeah.
And people don't, a lot of people are focusing on, when someone ults, it's the damage, right? But Vladimir has a lot of utility, not a lot of utility. You get kind of like one cast utility, but it might be just enough to keep your units alive to take down that last unit, like that TF. If the Vladimir's not there, you actually might lose that round, seeing how close it was. So that Siphoner buff is something that's going to be very beneficial to everyone. It's going to benefit everyone on this team, but more people are going to get more out of it than others, as Drownedgood is starting to scout out a little bit more frequently, and the Vlad's positioning is actually going to be pretty bad when it comes to trying to support the rest of the team. Good thing we have that GA, and you're seeing it now without that spell cast, how much harder it is for Drownedgood to survive. He didn't.
Man. Yeah, he didn't. He's still gonna be winning on the HP battle, as opposed to Gunmay there, who is towards, kind of middle bottom of the pack. But Gunmay actually, not surprisingly at all, has perfect Olaf items right now. He has Deathblade, Runads, and GA, which are kind of a lot of players have complaints, right? It's like, oh, okay, only these 3 items can be utilized on a carry. If you don't have any one of these, it's doomed. You're not going to be nearly as strong. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but it doesn't even matter for Gunmay here. Gunmay has perfect items for Olaf when he finds that. There are already Olafs in play, as we saw briefly there. There was an RFC Hodge one. Hodge is an item that I think is still solid there, but Gunmay having 6 cultists is going to, has preserved a bit of that HP. Has Siphoner in as well with that chosen, the Vladimir's chosen cultist, but the Nasus on top of that as well. Levels up, gets to put some Divine in, and Duelist, for that Callista who is the item carrier, so she'll be able to do just a bit more damage at this point.
And that Callista, even with those items at tier 1, is going to rip some people apart. There's no doubt about that. And we've got the chosen cultist in the front line with the Thief's Gloves. Great items for for that Vladimir.
Oh
That
yeah.
blue buff is actually a really big deal, as it literally takes, in my opinion, this forever to get to get into that Vladimir ult. I mean, look at how much utility
Oh
it offers the rest of the team. I mean, it's pretty much healing for everybody. I'd actually be really curious to see what that healing was at the end of
yeah,
the day.
same.
But we're seeing right now how important of a linchpin that unit is when it comes to these cultists. Together with the Siphoner buff, everyone is gaining a little bit of HP every time they attack. And so that's really good for people like Vlad, who are going to do a lot of HP at once, but also for people who attack really fast, like that Callista, like that Sivir, when she ults everyone else. So you're getting kind of like max value out of these traits right now on Gunmay's board, which is
Yep.
exactly what you want to see.
And both Thieves Gloves rolls, I think, are good. The Locket right now is going to be solid, providing extra, extra shielding for the front line. It allows time for Callista in the back there to be dealing damage. Allows more time for Vladimir to get ults off and to heal the rest of the team. Really, really solid here. Going up against Riku, who has a Teemo, but has moved some items on over to Olaf here. That Dragon Soul Slayer, the one that Gunmay certainly wants to find in the future. It's going to be taken down, though, by the Galio.
Yeah, and this dude, this Callista is doing some work.
Oh, yeah.
This tier 1 Callista in the back line, and Duelists within themselves are probably one of the more, I mean, they've always been a pretty consistent top 4 static comp, but more so this time around. I think they scale a little bit better into the late game. And so you're seeing a lot of people on ladder, hey, I'm not going to win. I'm just going to play Duelists and try to get top 4, which,
Yeah.
I mean, goes to show that the trait does have some value, especially potentially as a splash for this Callista, as we're looking at Tails now, who is running
Mm.
4 Mystics and a couple Duelists, but that's a chosen Duelist for Mystics. So this team comp is going to do really well against all of those spellcasters. That Vlad's not going to be doing that much. ASOLs are going to be mitigated, but everyone who's doing auto attack based team comps like Drownedgood is right now might have a little bit of a better shot, but we will see, especially since Vi is ripping apart some HP bars right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is super early for Mystic. This comp, I guess you kind of just have in as your best board at this point in the game, but certainly going to be transitioned a bit later depending on what the lobby actually is. I don't think we have seen a single Aurelian soul yet, but this Nico has Hodge right now, not one of her best items. The Chosen is going to be that Duelist Jax, which doesn't really have too many other synergies on this board right now. So certainly just some item holders just to get you through the mid portion of the game. But I believe once we reach round 5-1 or stage 5-1 or 5-2, it's probably going to be a roll down, a bunch of pivoting there for Laplace Tails, and I wonder where they are going to end up because they have a lot of options on the bench as well. I believe they picked up a Kale on the bench. They had, I think, a Talon even as well. And curious to see where they end up going.
I'm curious to see where IceBarriers is going right now. At
Yeah.
24 HP, that's significantly low. You should be worried about that if you're playing as IceBarriers, especially if you're not running Fortune. So there's like, it's like you're running Fortune without the benefit of Fortune.
Yeah.
Right? You're losing all these rounds and you're not getting anything in return, really.
I think I saw briefly that Icebarriers was running a Kale, but it was only Kale 1. Numano also has a Kale 1. Numano very flexible, so certainly just looked at the rolls, said, okay, Kale, I have some okay items for her. RFC is pretty solid. Gonna have a death cap and a GA alongside that as well. But Numano's actually rolling down to 0. So won't be able to go level 8 for a very long time. Does have a Nico on the bench, so probably just wants to find a tier 2 carry before they're comfortable enough to sit and save up gold again. Gunmay gonna be kind of greeting it out as well. Wants to save up a bunch of gold. Is still just rocking a Callista 1, almost going into stage 5 here. But kind of could get away with it, right? Gunmay's sitting in second place right now, 66 HP. He's gonna take a big hit here from Numano, but still going to be higher HP than them moving forward. Still at 52 in third place.
So this is the thing, Khroen. We're still early on, right?
Yeah.
These players are still figuring out, we might assume what best in slot items are. We probably have like a good 90 to 95% kind of read on these types of
Yeah.
things. But as you can see, everyone is losing. Right? Even in Phoenix at 78 HP, right? So, one, the game's probably actually going to
Ooh.
end moderately quickly. And two, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to take advantage of some mistakes. Not everyone is playing this perfectly. So, 43 HP in this set might feel like a little, but could be
Uh,
a lot versus the last set, as a lot of people moving over towards this Enlightened. And this Diana is going to be chasing that Kindred all around the map. And so far, not really doing a very good job of it.
Yeah, this Diana's getting stuck. Oh man, that's really unfortunate there. Diana had some great items for offense, but not a lot of defense there. And, got CC'd there, I believe, for a bit and didn't really do anything. But meechygnarko, they have pretty high HP comparatively to the rest of the lobby. Right now, sitting in third because of that composition. I believe they had 4 Spirit and that Diana 3 online with some assassins buffing her up too. Just, again, no defensive items there. You usually run either like a Titan's Resolve, they'll give a little bit of defense, maybe a QSS as well, or a Gunblade, but none of that. They did have a Hodge, but I believe it did roll damage that round, if I'm not mistaken. But
Mhm.
yeah, either way, only 50% of the time it's going to be some slight offense with the healing it could provide.
This comp tells me that Numano is going to be looking for a top 4 unless we can start hitting some of our executioners. I feel like that's what Enlighten can kind of tell you. Good. That's a QSS though. So QSS always going to find value. Depending on the meta, it'll find a lot of value or a little, but avoiding CC once could be the difference between
Yeah.
the winning and losing a fight. Say you QSS the Zephyr, right? Then all of a sudden you might have an advantage that you normally wouldn't have. So even though these units might not seem all that strong, especially with like tier 1 Kale, tier 1 Fiora in the front line. A couple units that are very strong are these Enlightened units. And I don't know if you noticed, but that Yuumi was a little bit of an MVP on
Yeah.
that last round, as this Kale needs the spirit buff to get to that attack speed since it doesn't have it in items.
I believe 4 players are running Kale compositions right now, and 2 of them have Kale 2s, which means it's going to be very, very hard for Numano and the other Kale 1 player to actually find that 2-2 upgrade. Numano would actually, okay, won't end up winning this, but Kale 1 still a pretty solid unit. Anyways, Numano's in a really, really tricky spot here because they rolled it down so heavily earlier to try to find the kills before the other players. Meant that their gold right now is really, really doomed. Numano has 2 choices here. Opted to go for the level up choice. Could have rolled down to try to find that other kill, Nico it, play for top 4, or just pushes levels, puts in maybe not as amazing synergy, like puts in a Nasus 1, right, for that 4 Divine. Isn't benefiting from the Siphoner there at all, but just wants to push levels because you're probably not going to find the kill at that point, even if you only need 1 more because you have that Nico. It's just oftentimes you're not going to find it. There's so many gone from the pool already.
And we're going to use our item from the Lucky Lantern. I lied to you guys. I didn't talk about it when it came up.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But now we're actually seeing one of the units that I think everyone knows from beta, and that is the Samira, who I think is actually in a moderately good spot right now. And Drownedgood not really liking the spot that they're in, especially losing by 6 units against a ton of against this tier 1 Kale, this tier 1 Lee Sin. Those units should not necessarily be surviving that long. Is Drownedgood now at 9 HP, our first person at risk of being eliminated. But again, look at the entire lobby right now. This is very, very close. This can
Oh
go
yeah.
either way. Any one of these players can make it into the top
Ooh.
4.
Okay, this is going to be huge here for Drownedgood to hit a Samira 2. Samira 1, probably not able to solo carry at this point. A Samira 2 could do it. Even with the nerfs that she received from the PBE, it is still a possibility. Usually you would want her as a kind of the supporting damage dealer, and you would want a more consistent one like Olaf there. Gunmay finally finds the tier 2 Olaf with perfect items, but Samira, see what she has to say about this one as she dashes in. AoE, she has 100% dodge while she's spinning around as well. She's going to take out Olaf Lee into the GA state. She still has her GA up as well, but I don't think it's going to be enough.
Oh, it's all about how many units we can take down. And we
Yeah.
actually did a little bit better than we should have. We actually, if we were able to take down 1 more of those units, we survive 1 more round, as that is a fast 8th for Drownedgood.
Yeah.
meechygnarko no pup this time, is going to continue their run into second place. But again, anyone can win, anyone can lose, anyone can win, as Drownedgood is going to be the first one eliminated. 8, 10, 19, 27, 31. So, I mean, those are only 2 rounds each, and we're getting to the point where we are at the point where IceBarriers and Tails will lose if they lose one more time. So Infernix's kind of 20 HP lead is looking pretty good right now comparatively to
Oh
the
yeah.
rest of the lobby.
That is a really, really nice lead to have right now. It is unfortunate for Drownedgood hitting that Samira too and still dying, but I think that just goes to show you can't really count on specific standalone units to carry your composition. Units that are supported by traits like this Olaf that we're seeing here, I think are actually super important and super valuable in set 4.5 here. Going to be using the item remover there to make Aatrox the Warlord. Have a Warlord chosen Tryndamere as well. Tryndamere, honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Tryndamere as the solo carry here, but I guess they're really not the solo carry. There is a tier 2 Swain right next to them as well with the Thieves' Gloves. It provides a blue buff, which is solid. If that's a bad Thieves' Gloves roll, though, it could be the end of La Place.
It's you can almost like sense the players kind of trying to make sense of their world, because on ladder it's a totally different world than in a
Ooh,
man, Tryndamere is so good.
okay.
Than what we're seeing here, as IceBarriers is going to fall. And so something that we are going to see a lot more of in this later stages of the game are warlords. Remember, you used to just switch off of warlords
Yeah.
back in the day, but now warlords is a good static comp, can actually take a lobby, especially if you get to 9. But you're seeing a warlord here in Tryndamere that is absolutely insane when it comes to what they're able to do, especially since they're able to do it to multiple people in a row. So we'll definitely look at that Tryndamere and see if it's going to be able to win out another round. Some good items there that Hodge and that Last Whisper is going to make things pretty hard. But Numana with this kick might actually be able to deal with it, depending on when this Trynd does ult. And ooh, those Janus shields actually are clutch. And Numano actually has a tier 2 Kale now.
Okay, the GA Super Clutcher Tryndamere actually does take out the Kale, at least playing it to the GA state, and is gonna win. This Tryndamere is very feast or famine. Like can die very quickly, but if it gets an ult off and gets that healing, I think the Hodge rolled healing there yet again. It's just going to sustain through everything. And that's why GA is such a key item, I think, in this set. One of the more flexible ones that can be used on a lot of very strong carries. I think it's kind of like best in slot on Kale, Xayah, Tryndamere, and Olaf, because there's a lot of damage coming out from a lot of sources, right? So just being able to drop that aggro and reset, be able to heal up once you get back and just deal so much more damage is going to be like nothing else compares to that, I think, in this meta right now.
Numano at 1 HP, honestly doing overperforming, I think, with the comp that they've got right now. Unable to hit anything more. Can't even find this. Excuse me. Can't even find this Nasus 2. But we're going to go ahead and move some things around. Morgana in the front line is very smart. Remember that Morgana does have it within her ultimate and able to do a little bit of spell vamp, so you can put her in the front line and get an ult cast off, and maybe even stay a little bit longer to get a couple of his auto attacks off too. And we'll see what happens with this Lee Sin. It's going to be a big deal, especially against this team comp with so much HP. This is that general Elderwood brawler. We got a couple Vanguards there as well.
Yeah, so this is the composition Infernix is riding at the top of the lobby right now. This Kale, however, is kind of unchecked right now, sitting in the back line. The redemption hasn't even gone off yet, just now does. Now it's Kale versus shyvana, but I think shyvana's still going to be able to eke out the win here, albeit barely. Taking out Numano in game number 1 here. Numano in 6th is not the start we might have otherwise thought for him here tonight.
It's a new set. Could be a new situation when it comes to Numana, but someone who is doing a very good job right now. 2 people that we know are Gunmay and Riku. So we're looking at LaPlace right now at 8 HP. Has been doing quite well with this brawler comp. or actually was scouting out that brawler camp. This is the Tryndamere comp. So
Yep.
even on, I believe that's attack damage this time. So we'll see if this Tryndamere is going to be able to do as much work as previous iterations. But this Swain in the front line as well with the QSS should be able to get an easy ult off and chew through a lot of this HP.
Yeah. Oh, that Tryndamere spins. Those next autos are going to smack, but can they find their way to the shyvana here? Going to be spinning away from her, actually. But they're still sporting units with the Aatrox left over. This is another close fight, but the Brawlers, this is too much HP to get through as a couple more eliminations come through. Laplace in 5th and Gunmay narrowly making it to top 4, but still a respectable start to the day, however. Riku, one of the players that we are looking at a lot, is still in it, 9 HP, but still has something left.
And so what you're seeing now too is kind of the importance of Divine to go with Kale, right? So this
Yes.
is part of like, I think the argument. I'm not going to touch on the argument, but what I'll say is that Kale is exponentially better if there is Divine's part of your comp, right?
Yep.
Other than that, it feels like Kale can be made of paper mache or papier mache, depending on where you're from or what accent you like to use. But this particular Kale is going to be a little bit stronger than Numano's in terms of that lifesteal and in terms of that attack damage right now. And you're seeing the difference between Double Hodge and what Numano had. So unfortunately, this Kale is going to get eaten, but this brawler
Yep.
comp again is just showing that if you're going to try to win a war of attrition against this brawler comp, it's going to be really hard to do just that, as we might see a double elimination here, and then Phoenix will win with the beefy boys.
Yeah, we don't even get to stage 6 carousel here. Talking about this gonna be a fast game. You were exactly right there, Boop. It ends on 6-3 as Infernix with the Brawlers takes game number 1. I wasn't sure that Brawlers would be able to perform that dominantly, but hey, Infernix really proving that the comp is super strong there. We didn't see any souls. We did see an Olaf comp with Gunmay there, but a lot of Kale, a disproportionate amount of Kale, I think, from game number 1, in my opinion, as 4 people tried to run it. Let's take a quick look at the standings here, however, because that game abruptly ended, but we can look at it a bit more objectively here. Infernix in first with 10 points, Riku in second with 8 points, meechygnarko in third with 7, Gunmay with 6, and Laplace in 5th, Numano was in 6th, IceBarriers in 7th, and Drownedgood, unfortunately, it was 8th place there, but still a few more games to go.
Yeah, I'm assuming that these games are probably going to get longer as time goes on,
Yeah.
especially as we figured out, like, ending a game at, like, what was that, 6-2? 6-3?
6-3, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were hitting like 7-3 at the end of
Yeah.
set 4. So that just goes to show a lot of damage being done really quickly amongst a lot of these players. And I can almost guarantee you that's because this is a new set. If you guys are wondering why that felt so quick, well, it was because it was. The other thing that was really interesting that I want to piggyback off of you is the amount of Kale that we saw. Because when I play Kale, she sucks. Right? Like, and I think it's
Yeah.
the divine thing that a lot of people forget. With Kale, you need that moment where she's going to be taking damage mitigation and passing off true damage, which lines up almost perfectly for when her auto attacks get better through her ult. But without that divine, you just don't get as much time with Kyle as you want. And so what these players are showing is, okay, we know how to consolidate power even outside of items onto our carry, right? As you were seeing Numano using spirits to buff the attack speed of Kale, because putting an attack speed item on Kale that's not RFC is almost kind of like wasting a slot because you need the damage too. And
Yeah.
so the way that they're kind of utilizing this Kale so differently than people that you see in Plat, for example, is very, very fascinating to me, and how these players are really putting so much emphasis on this character and really none on Asol or Elderwood this entire time.
That will probably, I would assume, shift going into this game. People are gonna look at that lobby and say, "Oh, okay, maybe I don't want to play Kale if I'm gonna be contested by half the lobby. Maybe I'm gonna want to play Aurelion Sol because it is an S tier composition that is seemingly perfectly free and available right now. Definitely going to be some shifts in people's approaches to the game. I just wonder who is going to be the one to actually pivot and who will stick true. If I had to guess, Numano is going to be one to recognize that, and he's, as we talked about before, a very, very flexible player. One that, I mean, if Numano has the route to be able to play Aurelion Sol and ends up finding them, I'm sure that we're going to see Numano pivot into that regard. I just wonder if anybody else will kind of make a similar adjustment, though, and we might see 4 Aurelion Sol comps in this game. We'll see, though. It's really, really exciting.
A little surprised not one person was just like, oh, no one's running Elderwoods.
Yeah.
And then and just switched, right? Because all the units were there. I mean, Nunu would have and Maokai would have been contested, but those aren't necessarily your Elderwood units, right? Like your Zaya a little bit later. So very interesting. It's not a lot of spats either when it comes to creating those Elderwoods, because we had a couple spats up there, but we saw the spat go into a warlord spat last time. So
yeah, there's a couple.
Very interesting.
Yeah, there was a duelist spat as well on somebody, and there was a warlord spat. I think those are the only two, at least that I remember seeing. But yeah, a spat, I believe, I made a note actually. Drownedgood got that spatula super, super early, and I thought that might go to Elderwood, but it of course did not. I do think, however, it does come down to what the players decided to slam in terms of items. And they slammed, there's a lot of Hodges that we saw. There's a couple RFCs, there was Olaf items as well. And Aurelion Sol doesn't really work that great with those items. Really kind of needs that Jeweled Gauntlet, I think, is a very key one, along with the Hextech Gunblade. The third item can kind of be super flexible if you're not able to find the Elderwood spatula, but either way, those two are still pretty key in my opinion. Maybe you can get away with no Jeweled Gauntlet if a death cap or something. But yeah, it goes down to the itemization choice of people early on in the game. Exactly.
Yeah, you need it. So, and that's the thing about items now. It's not just what item it is; it's what the item is going to give you in the rest of your team, because things are so closely related to your trait, right? And so we don't have a 5-cost mage, so Aurelion Sol is functioning as a quasi legendary unit in that comp, right? So got 50 damage taken away on that tier 2 cast. That's 100 damage over 2 casts, and that's just raw, right? So that's not counting the damage that's being taken away through your items as well because of that nerf. So Aurelion Sol, and with the nerf of Rakan, maybe that's why Elderwood just wasn't used at all on that last game, which is nuts because everyone is playing it on ladder. It's all you see. And so it was a little bit of a refreshing look right now, because we saw actually a ton of Enlightened players at the early game when it came to that last lobby. Numano actually finishing the game in 6th with an Enlightened comp.
Yeah, I had the 4 Enlightened there, I believe. Yeah, at the very end there, we're talking about the Morgana, and then the Nasus was there to, I believe, make 4 Divine, 4 Enlightened, and actually put Siphoner in there as well. It wasn't quite good enough to get into the top 4, but still a neat little pivot there at that stage in the game. Looking here, however, at Riku's board, I was really curious if Riku was going to slam any items, and I didn't think that he would, but nonetheless, Amarello is here to play on the Jax right now, being the item carrier. I'm certainly that will just go to somebody else later on, probably a Morgana, but still 4 Divine, 2 Duelists right now at this stage of the game with that Jax holding the Morellos is solid. I could see Riku being 100 HP win streaking up to Krogs.
Oh man, and so that is what we're used to when it comes to Numano, is 100 HP win streaking. But I mean, right now we're at 88 HP for Numano. Riku is at that 100, like you said, with 4 Divine. Should be chilling for a bit. I'm not really too worried about it, especially this Jax can win a couple rounds almost single-handedly. There are a couple early game chosens where you're just I don't even need these other units. I'm just going to invest in it. And Jax can definitely swing that around, especially with that Morellos. And with good positioning, you should be able to tag 2 to 3 people with that anti-heal. But this time around, it's only going to be a couple as we go over towards another beefy comp, as Laplace is going to be running Divine Siphoners right now with some Vanguards, and our straight Divine Duelist is doing all right. We'll see what this Jax is going to be able to accomplish here, but I think that siphoner trait on especially that Vlad right now, keeping a lot of people alive even through the
Ooh.
grievous wounds.
Man, so Riku there is just, it's a little slight thing, but
Ooh,
Riku is hovering the tier, thinking whether or not he wanted to actually dedicate it to the Jax there to get one of those counter strikes off earlier. And I think if he had, he would have won the round, because it looked like kind of Jax was like mana locked there for a bit, but it's actually because he was CC'd for a little while and not able to get that cast off. And he took a lot of damage during that time. If he had gotten CC'd while the counter strike was going off, that it would have turned the tides of the fight, certainly. Riku there had the thought in mind, but it didn't quite pan out, unfortunately. And that's honestly going to be huge. That's going to put a huge dent in the econ potential of you're going to be able to not get that same win streak that you wanted going into Krogs. And I think Riku will still be winning rounds from here on out because he still is strong. Just has to reset that win streak here. And that's going to be honestly a loss of like 8 to 10 gold it's going to end up being.
Well, and what people have to realize too is that you're not just losing 1 gold, right?
Yeah.
Say you lose and you hit 8 gold on your next round, right?
Hmm.
That's exponentially going to grow as you move on to the game. So that 1 goal you missed that one time turns into 2 gold because you missed interest, right? And then
Yeah.
that's gonna. I mean, we're all into stocks right now, so everyone should be well aware of what I'm talking about. As we are looking at some actually pretty interesting items now for this team comp. We've got Hodge on the monkey along with the sword. We could potentially get a Hextech Gunblade. We haven't really been seeing the Vigors all that often, but Hextech Gunblade seems to be a pretty good item, like a consolation item. You have the sword, you have the rod. Slam it on a little bit later. We'll see how long it takes for this Nico to give up on that rod as we're going over to this battle against Numano, who has a Warmogs, another item that is coming, I think, very, very popular all of a sudden on this Fiora.
Yeah, a little awkward to have to slam it, I think, in the early game, but that's what Numano had to do here. And while Riku's stonks over there going down, Laplace's are still going up with this win streak gold going on here. One more round to get that full 5 win streak before Krugs here. Not a lot of gold, however. Okay, it was a lot on the bench, and so they just sold to get to 10 here. Still, though, the board is strong. Having Fabled in right now, even with just a Nico 1, is going to be pretty strong. You talked about the slamming of items already. There's a Hodge on there. Pretty flexible, solid item there.
Mhm.
The Gunblade hasn't been made yet, but it might be in the future if we do decide to pivot away from this Fabled.
You know, TFT is kind of like a utopia in a sense where you like to get everyone can use the same items. Right? Everyone just shares the Hodges. That is definitely what a lot of people think of when it comes to TFT right now, which is build the most flexible items. Hodge is definitely going to be up there. So you can
Oh
put it
yeah.
on anybody to start, right? And then give it to your carry later whose numbers are going to find a lot more out of it in the end. So why not just build it, right? Why not
Yeah.
slam it? And so my question to you is almost everybody that we see here slamming items almost immediately. Be interested to see what Gunmay and Drownedgood are doing with their items. But in set 4.5 so far, when you see items on the bench at like 2-5, right? What are you thinking if you're that player versus slamming everything the second you get it?
Honestly, it's just probably not going to be. I was actually thinking if you're going to slam items, they probably want to be GA, Hodge, Sunfire, maybe a Chalice, maybe a Locket. I think those are the ones that come to mind initially. If you're not slamming an item, it's probably because that's not one of those. Numano did slam a
Mm.
Warmogs, which is it's a decision. I'll say that much. I personally don't think I end up liking it. But probably saved a bit of HP with it. Numano is at 80, but still towards the bottom of the lobby. It's just a lot of the other items are going to be kind of inflexible, at least a bit more inflexible here than, in my opinion, in previous sets. So you're going to want to see what direction you actually want to go to before you dedicate any more of the items towards. Arguably, there's a couple more that I'm probably forgetting that you can slam early right now, but that's the general consensus in my thought process on the matter.
Any item that like in the last set, like Chalice, Zeke's, and Locket, I feel like you can
Yeah.
if you want, you can slam at the beginning of the game, and then you can greed out. I personally like slamming items at the beginning of the game. I like having a stronger early game in general. But if you are a player like Asian Gamer, you're totally fine with losing a bunch of rounds
Oh yeah.
at the early game. You can even keep your items on the bench until you find your units, and then pick on carousel first, right? And
Yeah.
so that's always kind of like I think one of the biggest graduations when it comes to TFT is understanding not just the tempo of your characters, but the tempo of your items, and when certain items are going to start to fall off and peak, and when items don't fall off or peak. For example, Zephyr is going to be exponentially more valuable at the end of the game versus the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And QSS is lobby dependent, but it's up to you as a player to be able to look at the rest of the lobby and say, okay, I have my consistent items, I have my Hodge, and so now I need to build towards potentially the rest of the lobby, or
Mhm.
I need to force best in slot and just see where that takes me. I think those are
Yeah.
kind of like the two thought processes right now. I think best in slot's winning at the moment when it comes to late game potential, but we'll see what happens in the future. But what's really cool about what we're seeing now is we never really saw comps like 9 warlords or 6 warlords and 6 duelists and 9 elder woods make it to the end of the game before, because everything turned into
Yeah.
Bill Gates, right? And now we're seeing 6 cultists, we're seeing, we saw this 4 enlightened a little bit earlier, these kind of blenderish, a lot of splashes here and there, not as popular so far today.
I wonder if Drownedgood will want to commit to going a warlord direction. There is the Jarvan with the Sunfire right now, which is pretty strong. There is a Katarina on board here as well. It only has one rod. If you're going to build Katarina, you probably want Gunblade, QSS, maybe a Titan's Resolve, maybe a bit more damage. It kind of depends on what you personally prioritize at that point. I do kind of like Titan's Resolve, however. And yeah, as you were saying, you're not going to want to pivot out of those as much as before to get into those Bill Gates compositions or those legendaries, because the units with their synergies, like the
Exactly.
warlords, do scale really, really well. And with warlord compositions previously, where you would have to rely on just Katarina, you can now say, hey, Trindamir, you're kind of good now too. I can have multiple carries in my composition, and it's going to scale really well when I, hit that 9 breaking point as well, that 9 unit
Hmm.
synergy.
Exactly. And so it's weird because it feels less flexible, but I think the static comps became more flexible within themselves. Right?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Do you
I
see what
agree.
I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah.
think the game has more 8, like 9 Elderwood, 7 Mage, for example. But within those comps, there's, I think, more ways to play them, right? I think instead of just finding all the duelists, like last set kind of felt like it was, right? Now you can be a little bit more intentional with how you use things like Trindamir, who your main and secondary carry are going to be. And you have to think about it now because it's this kind of back and forth between legendaries and static comps. Once again, as we go over to Gunmay, who's running Warlord themselves,
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the stats, but I believe 6 duelists, the duelist adept combo has a 94% top 4 percentage on ladder.
Wow.
So, and is not the hardest comp to drive either. So,
Yeah.
if you guys are listening at home right now and you're really trying to get into this set, I think that's a good one to try. My friend calls it the duelists. Get it? Like anime, or the or the Dua Lipaists, um, because we're not funny.
It's okay, I'll laugh regardless. Just tell me
Thank
anything, I'll
you.
probably just laugh at it. That is kind of a surprising stat to me, however, that was a 94% top 4 rate there that they
Hmm.
mentioned. Yeah, honestly, it's kinda nuts. Gunmay going for a re-roll Warlord composition here. If you're going Warlords, you really wouldn't often see it with re-rolling, but Gunmay trying to kind of reinvent the wheel here. Double Shojins on the Nidalee. That's something people experimented with that, right? When Warlord, set 4 came out, but haven't quite seen it apart from that. I don't have too high expectations with this composition, admittedly, but if Gunmay is gonna make it work, hey, I'm here for it. I wanna see it.
Exactly. And if anyone's going to be able to make it work, it's going to be Gunmay. Also,
Yeah.
fingers crossed we get to see Space Jam today. It's awful, but Gunmay is
I
gonna
hope so too.
it um it's awful, but it could be fun to watch. At least for a couple rounds. You can make it work with perfect items and a 3 star Darius, but that takes a really long time to get to.
Yeah.
And there are much easier and better comps to play.
It's sad, but yeah, Darius, you can't really commit to that. I mean, there's a world where you can maybe run some like 6 Fortune if you high roll early game and have Darius in for a while, but you're still kind of gonna pivot out of it, I think, eventually. Having Fortune as one of the synergies there is kind of like a non-synergy if you're trying to, win the game with it. Unfortunately, Numano actually gets a Fiora 3 we saw there on the right-hand side. That's pretty
Those
interesting.
Warmog
That
stonks,
later.
right?
Yeah, I guess so. And a
Like,
locket there. Yeah, we actually see the matchup right now. Thankfully, Gunmay is going to be running into them, and they're both kind of rolling. They're still both on level 5 at 3-6 here. Uh, Man, I was not expecting this, but man, am I here for it.
I love that. Really interesting to see where this. Oh no! Oh no! The Fiora. Did you see? Oh, the pathing was so bad. The pathing was so bad, but it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. If the Fiora got the corner spot first, that would have been 3 units to 0. But instead, it's just
Yeah.
1. So, Gunmay, given a, I want watch him win by like 4 HP. Right,
I
right. And if he does, we'll know why.
Yeah, honestly. Okay, here's Nidalee 3. Nidalee 3 online. The rod is from the Nidalee that he picked up off of the carousel. What item's gonna go for here? Probably just some damage related. I mean, there's already the rod there. Probably a jeweled gauntlet. If I were to imagine anything, 6 warlords is going to be here when he levels up and puts the Katarina in. A couple sharpshooters already online with the Timo being in as well, and this is the time. I want to stay on Gummy's perspective for a little bit here because I'm really curious to see how well this scales from the kind of mid game into the late game here. Another sharpshooter with Tristana there being tier 2. Of course, Gummy levels up and 6 warlords have been achieved right now.
Ooh, that Garen. Remember, carry Garen, guys. It's called Karen. So we got to make it happen. We got to make the Karen comps happen, friends. So Gunmay doing what
Yeah.
he needs to do to get at least on my good side. Love the fact that I know these guys are pros, but a lot of people get baited by Rageblade. I think more so than any item in the game. Rageblade and Shojins, especially from kind of even Diamond and below. You think of attack speed, you think of faster. Ultimates, but I think what the locket does is it gives you time to get to that ultimate. You actually might end up getting a similar amount of value anyway, as we're starting to look at the rest of the teams, and we actually have a fabled comp for the first time. So I'd love
Yeah.
to go over to that fabled comp if possible and talk about it a little bit more, as this is, I think, the biggest new trait and synergy of the set.
Yeah, we see Gunmay is really strong right now. I'm kind of convinced after seeing that he's going to be chilling for a while. We'll see how the warlords with the Nidalee and Garen shape up towards the end of the game. But looking here at Laplace with the Fableds, it's going to still be that Nico, Wukong, and the Chosen, and Nautilus Chosen is Fabled, and that's a pretty tanky boy. As soon as he casts his ult, I believe it's 60% damage reduction for 5 seconds. I have to fact check myself on that one, but I think that's what it is. The Nico, the third blast there is going to be a bit more powerful, and the Wukong is just kind of there having fun holding some items, honestly, but doing a really good job at it.
Just happy to be invited right
Yeah.
to the party. It's like I remember in elementary school on Valentine's Day how you had to get a Valentine for everybody,
Yeah.
right? Wukong's here for that role. You know, he's totally cool. He's gonna take his Valentines. He doesn't care that there's no name in it because they didn't know his name, right? He doesn't care that there was no candy in it because they forgot, right? He's just happy to be here right now, and he's actually gonna fall real quick as the
Yeah,
place is gonna
to
go.
Gunmay.
Yeah, Gunmay's comp is ridiculous right now.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
he's pushed to level 7 as well, like,
Jesus.
as alongside everybody else. So with having the Garen 3, Nilly 3, he's also matching people's players' levels. Maybe a little bit of gold behind, but still, like, he's kinda right neck and neck with them almost.
And so, what you guys are going to realize about Fabled is, especially if you're a mage player, you're going to say, "Why can't these just be mages?" Especially the Nico mage cap on Nico and Cho'Gath, very good. Honestly, if you're just having Nautilus hold it, that's fine too. But what you really need, I think, for this Fabled comp is damage, right? And right now, the damage is centered on this wonderful monkey with the Deathblade GA and Hodge. But that, as you can see, it is
Yeah.
not enough, right? Most of the damage that you see from a Fabled comp is going to be coming from a tier 3 Nico with Jeweled Gauntlet, for example. Man, that Wukong really. overvaluing himself right now.
Yeah, Bonky Kong can only take you so far.
Yeah, exactly. Even with healing Hodge and that Janna who's gonna fall eventually. But also that Jax is holding some weird items. So another kind of lobby where there's some learning, I think, taking place.
We're all learning here today. 3 spats actually on this carousel. That's very, very interesting. Maybe we'll see some early installs, or were the nerfs too much to dissuade everybody? You know, honestly, when the nerfs came through, I'm like, okay, a sizable damage nerf, but still gonna be a strong comp, right? Maybe other players
Mhm.
don't aren't feeling the same way.
Not a
Or we still see it
single
online. I don't know.
Elderwood comp. Not a single Elderwood comp today.
Yeah.
That is honestly the most mind-blowing thing that I think I was so ready. Like, all of my studying was on, like, okay, I'm gonna be like I wanted to come in here and be like the Elderwood expert, right?
Yeah.
And I can't use any of that knowledge right now. Maybe we'll get there, but we haven't seen a single ASOL. We haven't even seen one get bought. Oh, Lucky Lantern though, as we kind of move on to
Ooh,
that
okay.
subject. So we have Target Dummy, which is, I think, one of the biggest skill expression opportunities in a lobby, right? Where
Yep.
you put that is very important. Are you going to bait ASOL? Are you going to bait assassins? You only get one opportunity. One time I did get a Lucky Lantern with 2 Target Dummies in it. That was actually really interesting.
Yeah. I think I had those before
And
too, yeah.
yeah, and then I believe that one is the Reforger. No, that one
I think it's
is
item
the
remover.
item remover. And so that's probably going to go on someone who is carrying items like Jax
Yep.
if they decide not to sell it. So the Jax is probably going to get sold. I usually see that item remover like when we hit like the top 4 and it's starting to be like, okay, in order to be this person, I need this item on Kale, right? That's when you start to see it. What about you, Khroen? When do you kind of see the best use out of the remover?
Yeah, like he's just stood right there, or if you don't really need it, it could just go to the end game and it can remove a Zephyr. So if you want to Zephyr cheese somebody, it's a perfect opportunity to do just that. Same thing with Shroud as well. If you want to make sure that you get good Shroud positioning, and you could face multiple players, just use item remover. It's pretty good for that one. But oftentimes, yeah, if you don't want to have to sell the unit there, it can just as soon as you see it, you can be like, oh, I can more liberally give my items to whoever as carriers, and then I don't have to sell them to get them back. I think sometimes I think I was talking to Doa earlier and was like, yeah, I was using Pike as item carrier, and then I sold it because I'm like, oh yeah, I'll find another Pike to get my 6 Slayers, but then never found another one. You don't have to worry about that with item remover. You can just boom, remove the items, still have the unit, and you're chilling.
We've all been there, Khroen. We've all been there. And then
Yeah.
you even use the loaded dice and still don't get them.
Oh
That's the
yeah,
worst part.
that. Man, we haven't talked about loaded dice because we haven't seen it yet. But I personally am not a huge fan of loaded dice. Don't get me wrong; it's very, very strong. I just think the games are very swingy when loaded dice is in play. Those are the times where we see things like 3-star Kales or Olafs or things of the sort, and they kind of run away with the lobby at that point in the game. Maybe we'll see them in the next couple of games, but haven't seen it so far.
Well, we were talking about it earlier today, and it's kind of like a budget Nikos
Yeah.
universe from Galaxies, right? Where
Mhm.
everyone just get to start with like their 4-cost unit, and so you can kind of just go for it sometimes, right? And if the loaded dice is friendly, like I've packed 3 Kales in one pack before. And so, or three of something in one pack before, or the 2 that you need. And so, it is such an insane way to come back. It's probably one of the easiest comeback mechanics to utilize in the game right now. If you're in last place, you only have a tier 1 Kale, you better hope that loaded dice pops up and gives you that Kale because that could
Yeah,
be your
right.
lifeline into the top 4. But that's where I think the argument is like, is a comeback mechanic or a lifeline going to be skill expressive, right?
Mhm.
I think it is. I think you can make the argument, but we'll save that for when we hit that loaded dice. We still have the
Yeah.
item remover and a Shen 2. Big deal. This is a comp that I feel like people who played a lot of set 4 would find pretty easy to run. On this one, it's another one of those kind of split blunder comps. 2 adepts, 2 enlightened, 2 mystic, 2 assassin, and 4 divine here with Talon as your carry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of a lifeline, meechygnarko needs to find one soon, and he was looking for it in the form of a Talon 2. Just one more Talon to be needed to get that online because there's a Nico there, but oh man, this is a lot of damage here. Is this lethal? It is actually
Ooh, a lot
barely.
of damage.
Oh no, meechygnarko dropping an 8th there, and meechygnarko, one of our returning players, so oof,
Mhm.
a bit disappointing performance there. Unfortunately, those rolls did not come through quick enough. They had a lot of gold they had to roll through there, but it just wasn't quite enough. The early game was too weak. Moving on over to Drownedgood, however, with the Kale.
Every player is playing more aggressively than I saw them play in set 4. They're
Mhm.
spending more money, right? Like, I feel like
Yeah.
back in the past, like, you would see people at level 8 with, like, 30 gold, right? Like,
Mhm.
you really wouldn't see people go to 8, spend everything, right?
Yeah.
You would, I think, near the end of set 4, but a lot of people investing in their economies right now, and the reason why, that's very obvious is, 1, Drowned God has no gold. Gunmay has 10 gold, right? And is level
Mhm.
8. Everyone seems to be pretty poor here on the bottom of the leaderboard, and everyone is low HP, right?
Oh,
56
yeah.
HP used to be like middle of the road for for this
Mhm.
point in the game, and that's in first place right now. So again, that learning is still happening, but Drowned God has the KL too with a Hextech Gunblade that does work on those auto attacks, by the way, friends. And the Divine's definitely going to help. We do have a Elderwood Executioner, which is that Zaya. That's not really going to be doing much until we get to that ult.
Yeah, I'm gonna see John God versus Riku here. Kale Comp versus Kale Comp. Riku does have the Yone with Thieves Gloves, however. Gonna be stunned because of the Trap Claw of the Sejuani, though. The D Claw, however, is gonna be so massive from Riku's, and the Hodge healing. It's just not gonna go down here. Takes out the other Kale, yeah, pretty easily there. Drowned God gonna be dropping very, very low. But I actually also wanted to talk about, I'm actually really glad you brought it up, the aggressive playstyle of people in set 4.5. We see more often people even rolling it down, maybe not to 0, but at least rolling down a little bit at round 3-2 when they leveled to 6. We saw it, I think, earlier this game as well. I forget exactly who did it, but you want to be, pretty strong still in the mid game. The pacing of everyone's lobby is that they are gonna want to just tank a bunch of hits. They get to a point like Michi where you're just so low that even when you're rolling it down and you get almost to your composition, you don't just die before you're able to actually get it online. This same thing is still going to be seen once we hit levels 7 and 8. Generally, I think when we get to the beginning of stage 5, players will roll down a lot of their gold, even just typically outside of an aggressive meta. Um, Once they're already again at that level 8 point, but still you're leveling to 8 probably more aggressively, maybe even rolling slightly earlier than usual, and that's going to be a Yone 2. Could have had a kill too, but already had one, so I wasn't trying to go for that 3-star.
Doesn't need the 3-star. Too many people are contesting the Kale and will
Yeah.
always be contesting the Kale. Love Thief's Gloves on Yone. Yone got a little bit of love coming in from beta, so you're going to be able to do a little bit more with them. Very good with Hextech Gunblade. One of the better carriers for that item. And look at that target dummy placement as well in front of the Kale. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that for a second. So that's going to function like your Azir soldiers, right? So where you would put an Azir soldier is a good idea of where you would put that target dummy as well, if that kind of helps you out. And you usually want to put it in front of your auto attacking carry in the corner. Very interesting though, there are a couple Aatroxes in the lobby, so there could be an argument to put the dummy in the corner
Yeah.
for that pool. But with the Declaw, we've already seen the Kale get pooled with no problems. So as of right now, no need to overthink it, as Numano is going out in 7th place. And I think that word overthink is exactly where Numano tends to falter. We talk about the decision making opportunities and how well Numano can make those decisions, but when you have all that information, sometimes it's hard to use it, and you start
Ooh.
overthinking and making things a little bit too fancy. And I think Numano can definitely get trapped into that kind of play rather than listening to Occam's razor and going with the simplest solution.
Yeah, definitely. I am really liking what I'm seeing here from Gunmay. Not only is he level 8, still 20 gold to his name, has a Force of Nature, but also has a Warlord spat on a Samira. That is going to be something that you can win games with as a Warlord composition. The Katarina is on the bench, is just missing one Warlord in the form of an Azir to actually hit that 9 breaking point there, and I think would even drop the Teemo and the Sivir at that point. Stick with 2 sharpshooters between Samira and Nidalee, and just run the 9 warlords. And I think that would be real solid, game winning even for Gunmay.
Ooh, man. So this Nexus minion is going to give our remaining 5 players some items. And again, only 5 players remaining at the beginning of 6-1. We might not make it past our stage 6 games again for the second time, but this one is going to make it past 6-3 based off of those HP bars. So the players learning slowly but surely what tournament lobbies are going to be like in the 4.5. Obviously going to be very different than what you're seeing in your ladder lobbies, which is full of Aurelion Soul, full of Elderwood. Still want to bring up the fact that we haven't seen a single Elderwood comp at all today. We haven't seen a single A-Soul. We saw an A-Soul get taken from Carousel, but only because there was a Force of Nature on it. And Gunmay was able to grab that up for himself.
Yep. Gets that. The Nidalee still here doing a lot of work. That is a Samira too, however, that finds its way into the backline from Infernix. And what just happened to Gunmay's comp there? Samira, that's what happened.
Oh, just like on the Rift, friends, the frustration is there. 220 extra attack damage on that Samira. It's not going to really get much better than that, and that's going to actually give a little bit of worry to Gunmay, who needs more Samiras. And 2 of them, 3 of them are out of the pool already, so he's competing to find, I think, 4 more total. So we're going to need a couple eliminations, or else that Samira never going to make it tier 2, and that's kind of what it's feeling like right now. At least we get some partial stats from the Warlord buff, so it's kind of like a Samira 1.5, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's just not going to be as beefy as tier 2 Samira.
I think Gunmay was content on sitting on his gold until he lost a round, but I think he didn't expect to lose a round in a little bit. Did roll down a lot of the gold there, however, and I think that was the correct choice. Did upgrade Teemo and Sivir to their tier 2 states, as well as put in a Pike over a Darius, and that's all of those are upgrades, however, and wins this next round because of it. Still hasn't found the Azir, unfortunately. Has rolled past a decent amount of 5 costs, a lot of Lee Sins, but again, still no Azir. Riku dropping in 5th place, however, so we are at our top 4. And look at this HPs, Boop. Like,
yeah.
So
we're not making it to round 7, most likely.
No,
maybe
the next 3 rounds, it's possible, but yeah.
But 7-1 is, I think, what we're gonna max out when it comes to these players. Also, the leaderboard is flipped from the last game outside of Gunmay and Infernix. So Laplace and IceBarriers were, I believe, 6th and 7th. In the last round, and now we're in the top 2. It's going to be very, very close between everyone, though, as everyone is only separated by 4 HP. So single unit losses on advantage like that is actually a very big deal, because this is most likely going to come down to a couple tiebreaker shenanigans. So whoever loses this next round and finishes with more HP, Laplace is going to be that person. Will have a little bit more breathing room, and so Gunmay needs to lose by 2 less units than Laplace does if he wants to finish in 3rd.
Okay. So Gunmay identifying there that he doesn't actually need to take the Azir, even though Azir is Warlord. Gunmay can just take the belt because he already has a spatula on the item bench there. So he can just make another Warlord spat and fit 9 Warlords in that way. Can put it on, right there on the Sejuani, take out the 2 sharpshooters, and boom, R9 Warlords here. Gunmay can't afford to lose any more rounds. Unfortunate that he lost the last round because it was super, super close, but this is the kind of do or die. This is the peak composition that we're going to be seeing here. Uses the item remover to get the Shroud back, as I was mentioning earlier, and this is going to be the time to do it.
And when you're at 6 HP and there's only 4 people remaining, this Shroud is the difference potentially between 4th and 2nd place. That Morgana, though, with that shows a double chalice in the back line, together with that Samira, has already destroyed Gunmay's comp in the past, but they're a little bit more spread out, so they're going to be doing a little bit more work, and it's going to be the 2nd Samira ult that's going to be doing a lot more damage. Will the Sivir be able to bring this back? The answer is no. Everyone's still alive, I believe. Gunmay still in the top 4. Infernix and Laplace at 8 HP. We're going to round 6-6 with 3 players in single-digit HP, and that's what I was talking about earlier, Khroen. When it gets this close, a singular unit is the difference between getting 4th and 3rd and potentially
Yep.
coming back for Fight Night, and IceBarriers goes from 1st to 4th in a single round.
That is heartbreaking when it's such a close lobby like this. It like feels good. At least I got into top 4, but I'm sure it feels so bad. Like I could have won that game if I had a different matchup there, or maybe a little bit of different positioning. Gunmay now though, no more item remover, needs to. Ooh, okay, actually moves all the units towards the back line there. Nidalee not going to be doing as much damage with the spears, but it does force the enemies to walk forward. Nidalee gets grabbed actually by that, Blitzcrank artifact
Oh,
there from
no!
Ornn. I think that
Samir
might
is
make the difference.
also down as well, and so it's going to be this Khroen in the middle of the field that's going to try to get as much damage as possible onto the rest of the crew, because even if he loses, we still want to take as many units off the board as possible. So this is best case scenario for a loss. Gunmay will lose this round, but by how much? It is going to end at -4. We're going to another round potentially. Yes, we
Yep.
are, as Infernix and Laplace were able to win out on their round. This is it, folks. After this NPC round, we only have one more to go. We called it Khroen. 7-1 is where we're going to be ending things today.
Yeah, exactly. You called it. I mean, exactly. Like the farthest we're going to go is 7-1 because those losses were by such a narrow margin that they weren't initial eliminations. At least, for Infernix and Gunmay, they got to hang on a little bit longer. But that one from Gunmay, it was a narrow elimination or a narrow loss, but still resulted in an elimination. However, and Laplace here going to be down to the final round. What improvements can you make to your composition? A Yone 2 might be a solid one. Shen 2 as well is going to be good. A Zephyr on that Janna. Do you want to try to sell the Janna? Probably not, unless you find a replacement, which you could if you sell the Yones, just to get a good Zephyr in. Really wants to fit this Yone in, it looks like. And yeah, Will for the Sejuani. Doesn't get to reposition too much else though, like, doesn't get to reposition the Zephyr, however, so that Zephyr might end up being dead here, and yeah, just Zephyr's a
Yeah.
Pike 1.
Also, put the belt on someone. Just do it.
Yeah.
You're literally leaving stats of HP on the bench right now. Might not matter in the end, as this Swain is not actually going to live all that much longer. That Giant Slayer, Jesus Christ, is going to take down Laplace, and that is going to be it for this round. Another quickish lobby ending at
Yeah.
7-1. These players are bashing on each other throughout the games.
It's exactly as you said it. It's just such an aggressive play style. I'm very even surprised that it got to stage 7-1, given how low everybody was. But we got there, and that's where we capped out at in a wonderful, wonderful game. Let's take a look at our scores here as we see Infernix take yet another lobby. Completely different composition, still played just as immaculately there. 20 points going into the half, and Infernix is well within the spot right now to maybe even take the record, if not tie it, but both are still available right now. Gunmay in second with 13 points, Riku and Laplace tied in third place right now, both with a finish and a fifth place finish with 12 points.
Crazy day of games so far. Very aggressive, very quick. No Elderwood still, no Asol still, at all. So I am definitely going to be adjusting my play on the ladder, Khroen.
Hey, I mean, maybe you don't have to. Maybe it's just one tournament, Boop. We shouldn't go, changing all of our philosophies, all of our game plans off of today. Maybe we'll still see some. We still have 2 more games to go. Before we get to those games, though, we will have to have just a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Fight Night Rising, the first one on set 4.5. We have had a couple of really fast games,
Yeah.
honestly, so far. And if we quickly want to check back in on the scores, I'm sure, Boop, you have a lot to talk about, and I also do too. But quickly, Infernix coming out real dominant here, 20 points. Gunmay in second with 13. Riku and Laplace tied in third with 12 points. meechygnarko and IceBarriers tied there in fifth with 8 points. Numano, honestly, in seventh, bit of a surprise there. And Drownedgood in eighth. Now, what are your thoughts so far, Boop, on what has transpired here so far in the first two games?
Number one, it is very obvious this is the first time we're seeing a tournament on set 4.5. There's definitely still, you can feel it in the way that the players are making their decisions. Still a lot of discovery happening, right? Because you can take a lot of knowledge from the ladder, for example, and then completely waste it on fight night because no one is doing it. And it's not just, Elderwood or Aesol today. It was Warwick in the past, or, the Morgana week, where it was very, very strong in ladder, and then you came here for fight night, and it just really wasn't the case. Maybe you got one or two people running it, but a lot of people are really good at countering the best comps in a lobby because you only have to worry about 8 people, right? You know what they've been playing throughout the day, so it can be very different going into this next game, saying, okay, Elderwood has been uncontested. Does a uncontested Elderwood not hit top 4? We don't know yet. We haven't seen it, but I expect a little bit more experimentation as we move forward, especially from our bottom 3, bottom 4 players who are going to
Yeah.
need to try something to make it up on that leaderboard.
Especially Numano. I mean, talk about Numano being a flexible player. Maybe though, just not making correct decisions. It is a new
So
set. There's a lot to get used to. Yeah, I mean, you have something you want to say on the
yeah,
matter.
yeah.
Go for it.
I have a
Yeah.
theory here. So Numano, I think, was very much well known as a flexible player. Maybe had one of the most beautiful pivots we've ever had on Fight Night Rising
Yeah.
before. It was gorgeous. I remember we talked about it for like 30 minutes, right?
It's so nice.
However, this particular meta, I don't think benefits that style as much as it used to,
Mm.
right? So you can be flexible,
Yeah.
right? But there's going to be less of, I'm moving from cultist keeper to legendaries, right? Now I'm moving from cultist siphoner to cultist keeper to, or like cultist keeper to cultist siphoner
Yeah.
to maybe something else a little bit later. Like I said before, within Elderwood, within Duelists, within Cultists, within Warlords, there are a couple different ways to play, all because of the newer units, right? That doesn't really help Numano, though, who's really good at identifying the lobby and adjusting accordingly. But people now are playing Warlords and keeping with Warlords. So, right? So you're
Yeah.
almost forced to be more static yourself, right? Because you
Mhm.
spend too much time looking for counters, you're never going to get strong units. So I think
Exactly.
that's where Numano is right now, in terms of, I think, his discovery process with this particular set. At least that's what I would assume.
That's a very interesting theory, actually, because I completely agree with you that there is going to be less full pivots, less impressive stuff that we saw Numano do the first time, or the first or second time. That's probably, I think, the first time that we saw Numano here on Fight Night. But as you were just talking about, there's going to be more static compositions. You're going to stay with those over the course of a game. There is still room for that kind of skill expression. And Numano, I think, right now has to find a balance of finding when to do that, when he can get away with it, but not over focus on that being his crutch, his kind of key thing that differentiates him from the rest of the lobby. You need more than that in set 4.5, which is exactly your point, and I definitely super agree with you on that regard.
Yeah, and that's always the fascinating thing when it comes to sets where they're the same, but these small differences, even just from taking out a unit like Jinx in Fortune, right, which made
Yeah.
that comp hyper flexible within itself, right? You take that away, you're forced to play a little bit more static, right? So you're switching out Jinx for Darius, who's who's way
Yeah.
less flexible when it comes to that Fortune comp. So. Numano previously, all those decisions, all of the machinations, all the permutations, right, of TFT is like an AI learning. But when you're looking for all of these different webs, but there's only really one that works right, for this lobby, you get lost in the weeds. And I think
Yeah.
that's the best way to describe it is we can get lost in the weeds a little bit. We've seen Numano do that to a lesser extent before when the pressure is up, but now it's very, very obvious to me that
Mhm.
that is what is happening. You never know though, right? 2 games for Numano can be 100 games for me in terms of knowledge. So
Sure.
never count them out.
Definitely not. Numano has a game plan, certainly. Like, you like to talk about intention a lot, and I'm noticing a lot of intention still in Numano's play.
Yeah.
Even the decision before the round 2-1 came up, there was the decision to pre-level to 4, get maybe a better chance of a chosen there in the next shop. Didn't end up hitting one, but still hit some brawlers, made a blue buff on the Tristana. Blue buff can be flexed between a couple of different units. It can go on an Aurelion Soul, honestly. I keep going back to it, but I think it's only a matter of time before we see an Elderwood Aurelion Soul comp, right? Like, at least in my mind, that's going to be the case. We'll see if it actually ends up happening, but there is the option for 4 brawlers here. There is the Tom Kench and the Maokai on the bench here for Numano. The Tristana will still be on board right now. It is the only tier 2 unit that he has, as well as the only real like item holder for this blue buff right now, but not good enough to beat Riku's brawlers at the moment. There's
Oh
4 brawlers up
man.
top.
This is so interesting, right? Because it is again the first time that we're seeing this set here on Fight Night Rising. You've got some more stuff moving on later this week, but
Yeah.
what's kind of like your gauge on anything? Like you asked me earlier, what is the most surprising? But what about for you? What is something that you are not seeing that you expected to see?
Something that oh man. Okay, I think just the amount of people just kind of crutching on Kale right now. I thought we'd see a bit of kill for sure, but there's been 2 games with like multiple times. Like there was 4 kills in the first game. There's a couple at least I think in the second game there. And she's a solid unit for sure, but not one that I thought would have so much priority here. And we're not really seeing things like duelist compositions come out. I think we did see one last game. Numano, I think, actually was the one to run that. He hit the tier 3 Fiora, tier 3 Yasuo, but still didn't really have a good placement to show for it. And maybe it was due to the awkward items early game, like slamming the Warmogs and the Fiora. Maybe it was due to actually dedicating the gold for the Fiora. You know, we can speculate about it a lot, but either way, there's still those not good, not as S tier compositions coming out, but just still not performing, and compositions that you would think are S tier just not being seen at all. So it's always going to be when you analyze it from afar, things that you expect, coming from us being casters, commentators, but then how the players are going to approach this and what trends that they're seeing playing on ladder and stuff, and what they actually decide to bring to tournament with that all in mind.
Okay, so one thing that I'm very intrigued about is Riku too, because Riku was not a flexible player. The last time we saw him, he was a Moonlight player. Remember?
Hmm.
So I'm also very curious to see like where that's gonna go, because we're gonna need to see him for another week. Like, say he gets in the top 3, I'm wondering like what comps they're gonna run differently next week versus this week, because we've
Yeah,
seen very large changes in terms of everyone using Kale this week and then nobody using Kale next week, right? If we had this last week, everyone would have been using Acehole and Elderwood. Literally everybody would have been.
yeah.
It was almost as bad as Darkstar back in the day, but there are more Elderwood units, so I feel like people felt a little bit more flexible within it. But Riku was not flexible, was playing Diana Moonlight, not Moonman, right? Was doing Goodnight
Yeah,
Moon with the Diana. So tends to like playing with these static comps himself. So very interested. So like what Numano is getting taken away from, I think Riku gets added to in terms of potential when it comes to the set.
sure. And with that in mind, I actually went and checked. Riku has run the last 2 games, both playing Kale. So that right there, what you're bringing up, coming to fruition here. Maybe we'll see a 3rd game of Kale for Riku. Certainly, it works as that kind of playstyle, even though it's inflexible. It is going to be more beneficial in this set 4.5. So I am kind of favoring Riku for that regard. Gonna move on over to meechygnarko, however, here with maybe some Aurelion Soul items. There's a Gunblade at least already made, and a Hodge as well on that TF.
Oh man, Hodge on TF. I don't know why I like that so much. It's I really want to build it in regular League of Legends. Right? I was that guy who was doing like ADTF when still I am still that guy.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna say.
refuse to play something meta and ranked. I'm like a top Senna player. I'm sorry. I'll play Riven. But
Okay.
when it comes to TF, I like that TF can benefit more so than a lot of other units from both AD and AP, right? Something that we talk about a lot. Nidalee comes to mind when it comes to someone who benefits from both AD and AP. Teemo is another one. But TF is, I think, the only mage that can really benefit from attack damage. This is also the first mage comp that we're seeing today. So we've already
Yep.
got the 5 mage. We don't have a 5 cost mage, which is why you're seeing the 7 mage there on your screen. And this is all potentially going to go on to an Asol a little bit later, a character that we literally haven't seen at all today. Money instead of a spatula might have actually with mages. Sometimes you like the spatula, but we're going to hit
Yeah.
30 gold instead at 3-1, which is pretty good. In terms of HP, people still beating up on each other. Khroen, look at 2 people in 70s.
Yeah, 2 people in the 70s, 2 people, 3 people actually, excuse me, at 86, and Phoenix being the sole player remaining with 100 HP there, and it looked like they had some warlords going on from that brief glimpse. Can Infernix do it again? A 3rd game in a row, first place, and they were very dominant in the past 2 games. Like, honestly, the first game was super, super dominant. The last game was pretty close, but their composition was just so powerful towards the
Yeah,
end there.
beat a 9 warlord comp pretty
Yep.
easily. Um, and so Infernix playing very, very well. Was consistently 3rd place, I believe, in
Mhm.
set 4. I think this is the 3rd week. So I don't think there's going to be a 3rd week curse for
Yeah,
Infernix. Maybe
surprised you didn't even bring it up. The 4 week
yeah,
race, it's not gonna happen.
exactly. That's amazing. It always happens, guys. Like, it is probably one of the most predictable things at Fight Night. The second one is whoever is winning in the 4th lobby will get 8th place in the last lobby. But the overarching theme here is that Inferno is coming back for 3 weeks in a row and getting better each one of those weeks, as I think the lobbies have actually gotten stronger each one of those weeks too. And I mean, when you win this consistently in a Wild West type of situation like a new set is, that's a big deal, as those
Yeah.
icons seem enormous for,
Yeah.
for these
Playing
characters.
a bit different resolution here
Yeah.
from glad we got Infernix POV at least for a little bit here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna be an Ionic Spark, which isn't an item that we've seen too much of, I think, in this set in general. Not a lot of people prioritizing that, but still gonna be a decent item slam early game. I'm kind of surprised to see it being slammed, however, because I think it won't scale that well unless we're gonna be going into something like a Aurelion Soul or a Kale, perhaps. It would be decent on. And Phoenix also not opting to go for sharpshooters there. In that last round, had the option to, but stuck with the 4 warlords and a couple other small synergies.
Is that an
Which,
Elderwood player? Sorry, it's
hey,
not. It's
maybe,
not. It's a
I
brawler
mean,
player. Yeah,
maybe in the future.
I know, right?
Not right now, though. Not right
Uh,
now, though.
what do you think that's about, Crowan? Is it just? Do you think that pros see nerfs like that and they're like, okay, this was targeted at Elderwood, so I'm just going to move away from it? Is it just that
Hey,
bad right now? Like, this is pretty crazy to me that no one's even tried it.
knowing TFT players, I think the majority of TFT players, maybe that's a little bit too harsh. A lot of TFT players and overreacting kind of goes hand in hand, I would say. One round, it's a first. Next round, it's an eighth. We all know. We all watch people in TFT community who talk in absolutes like that. And I'm sure players look at nerfs like that Aurelion Soul one and they're like, okay, comp sucks. It's doomed. We're not gonna see. It's just no one play it. It's so bad. And then it's gonna come on to where somebody reaches like rank 1 with it, and they're like, "Hey guys, this comp's still good." And everyone else is like, "Oh yeah, you might be onto something. That's kind of probably right here."
I knew the whole time. I just,
Yeah,
other comps were just stronger. Um,
I don't get to call anyone out, but TFT players may be a little too quick to jump to conclusions sometimes. Not everybody, but definitely a lot of players. But that's probably why I think I go into that tangent to say that might be why we're seeing literally 0 early install Elderwood compositions here tonight.
And when things are changing, especially when they've changed, I think it was like 2 days ago, right? And sometimes you just don't really want to touch it without enough research, right, before coming in here. Maybe the other team comps are going to be a little bit more predictable because multiple units haven't been changed, right? As we get a lucky
Yeah.
lantern, target oh, it happened!
2
Two
target
target
dummies.
dummies. I
Hey.
love this. We get to like really talk about positioning now, and positioning a TFT, while very, very important with 2 target dummies, is absolutely one hilarious because you're going to see some assassins get baited by this target dummy.
Yep.
And an ASOL if we saw one, if that character existed in the
Yeah.
set, I guess.
If we're going
But
to see
yeah,
one, we're much less likely to now, honestly, with these 2 target dummies. So,
exactly.
never mind.
Same thing. I mean, like the target dummies kind of really screw with mages more so than anyone else.
Yeah.
You know, but if you put a death plate on, it's 2 free stacks, right? So there is going to be a little bit of give and take.
True, true. Good to stack Deathblade. You're 100% right there. It is going to make it a little bit awkward. However, as you said as well, for mages, still not seeing many of them. I wonder who was running mages a little bit ago. Are they
I think it was
still
meechygnarko.
meechygnarko? Yeah. Maybe check back in with them a little bit and see what's going on there. As yep, 6 mages, and yep, that is a loss that just happened to the hands of a Diana with double Hodge and a Sunfire. Probably to be expected. There is going to be okay. This comp looking a lot better than what was just on the board there. There's now 3 Elderwoods. There's now 2 Keepers as well. There's going to be a Sunfire Cape being held by that Elise. Everything's just corded right now, which is perfectly fine with this composition. I think it's even good to do so. And the target dummies are going to provide a bit more protection as well. Target dummy even going to be getting that shielding from the Keepers as well. I like it. I like it.
I like it too. Everyone getting a little bit of it. This is a kumbaya comp right now. You know, everyone like holding hands, getting that shield, singing kumbaya. We're feeling good as Viger, who I believe has one of the slowest auto attacks in the entire game. And that's not being, I'm not joking. I believe does have one of the slowest auto attacks in the entire game. Needs that mage buff in order to be successful. Gets very lucky with this matchup because Drownedgood had a lot of tier 1 units, and with the tier 1 Viger, that's free AP. I saw at least 4 get taken away there. We're above 60 gold. Drownedgood at 38 HP, Riku at 48. Gunmay at 56, Laplace at 60, right? So this is going a little bit slower than the last couple lobbies on the top end, but on the bottom end, still pretty aggressive.
Yeah, very, very aggressive. I think maybe the people who are being super aggressive at the top and they're not losing, not running into each other. Numano on a win streak and Infernix barely having a couple or 1 loss there, dropped to 96, but Drownedgood needs to find something right now to come back in this game. meechygnarko with the mages still being at 80 HP, honestly pretty solid. I might have expected that to be a bit lower right now, but the TF is doing a wonderful job being an item carrier at this point. Even now fitting in the 3 cultists, which is a really, really good splash trait to put in at this point. It gets you, okay, putting a pike, which is even better. Finding the Recon as well. You're going to be able to get to level 8 pretty safely, I think, if you're meechygnarko, and then be able to roll down for a really good mage chosen, or even Elderwood chosen at that point. meechygnarko's in a really, really good spot here.
Not a single player today has made it to level 9. Put that in the consideration
Yeah,
versus
I
what
guess
we
you're
were
right.
experiencing in the end of the last set, where everyone was slow playing 5-1, right? Or 4-1 to 5-1, so they could get to 9. The other thing about the cultist trait here that's actually really good is if you notice, the tanks right now are the target dummies. Right, and so the target dummies and the recon, right, and so Galio comes down, gives you just an extra body, right? It's a meat shield, pretty much for that Viger and for that TF in the back line, and it's still working. The rest of the lobby actually not super strong. That is something about this particular meta that seems to be taken in a little bit. Remember when Fortune used to give you 5 cost units at like 2-1?
Yeah, that was
Right?
a little strong.
That was a long time ago, but it does seem like that very big lead kind of went away with those Elderwood nerfs, to be completely honest with you, so far. Numano on fire right now. Remember, can't ever keep him out, but Meechy on these mages really showing up right now and might have an easy time picking up some of these mages since no one's really contesting them right now.
Yeah, ooh, Dragon Soul spot there from Gunmay. I mean, we know Gunmay likes riding that Olaf hype train, and there is going to be 2 Olafs, one on the board, one on the bench right now. Another sword on the item bench for Gunmay as well, but not a lot of gold. Gunmay rolled a decent amount. Is going to be selling some of those bench units to get gold back. This fight, however, is still super close. Oh, okay, the Dragon Soul proc nearly took out the TF, but that Hodge, as you were saying, you like Hodge on TF, and hey, it's working out pretty well in this round here.
Hodge is such a good item, and has always been a good item ever since it's been here, right? And the kind of like the in-game balancing of the item is so funny because lifesteal is so much better than the attack damage sometimes, right? Sometimes you roll that attack damage, you just power through everybody, especially earlier on. It's not going to be as consequential, but Hodge, if you roll wrong, it's a loss. If you roll right, is a win, right? And that 50-50 is very exciting to think about. And you do know what you're going to roll before your round. This TF has rolled lifesteal, so we'll see if that's going to be the reason why they potentially win this round. That Zephyr, combined with that Sejuani ult to follow, means that that TF has only gotten 2 auto attacks off so far. 3, 4, there we go.
Finally gets to cast, but that's a Kali, meanwhile, is just destroying everything else in sight here. The Hodge healing is enough. It actually looks like it will be. I don't think it's going to be enough damage coming out from this Azir to take out this TF. Okay, the cards there kind of trolled.
I cannot believe. There we go.
I was real clenched there. I thought I was gonna be wrong, but I knew it the whole time.
Yeah, you knew the whole time. You got to commit, man.
You like having your hot takes, your firm stances. I'm like, nah. If I'm gonna be wrong, like, nope, jump and ship immediately.
I know. I'm like, let me die on this hill for no reason. Yeah. Because I like to argue. I'm a great person, by the way. But the biggest thing here with meechygnarko is the lack of tank is going to matter. Especially a little bit later on, you're going to need to push that damage as quickly as possible. Get that Viger machine gunning as quickly as possible, so you can butter some people up for that ASOL if you don't land that kill with that ultimate. But we still haven't seen the ASOL just yet, as meechygnarko finds the Annie. Riku is going to get the Sejuani, and Drownedgood is now looking at a 6 warlord comp. At this point, I believe Gunmay already had a tier 3 Garen, right? And a couple other tier 3 units, just tier 1 Vi here right now.
Wait, there's Laplace. Yeah, there's the tier 2. Laplace has a tier 3 or a 3-star Katarina, and Drownedgood, also running warlords, has only a tier 2 Katarina. You're probably not going to get that to the 3-star, and Laplace is in a much better spot there. Yeah, look at spin, everything dies. Wow. With Titan's Resolve as well. That's actually an item I was talking about earlier. Could still lose though because you're Oh no.
The target dummy.
Oh no.
The target dummy was almost was close, buddy. Was close, target dummy. One of these days you'll get them.
That's crazy.
The target dummy was where the Nidalee spears were bouncing into that Katarina, and Katarina got blocked out. That could not have gone better for that Nidalee. That was literally perfect scenario for them. That is a underdog winning a round, in my opinion.
Yeah, Drownedgood with the Cat 2 won the round. Laplace, Cat 3 lost the round. Albeit Laplace's cat items are a little underwhelming. There is the Titan's Resolve, but Shojin not going to be great by any means. But Drownedgood did have both the QSS and the Gunblade to pair on top of that. Looking at Gunmay now, Gunmay has sold the Olaf with the GA and has put the GA on the Swain. Oh no, Gunmay has betrayed Olaf?
GA on Swain, another really, really great item choice. Swain is pretty strong, but Gunmay still going to fall. That Katarina needs, I think, a little bit of defense. It's getting very close to dying, even though it's getting that ult and getting a lot of kills. Good positioning will leave that Katarina out in no man's land and potentially cause it to throw, just like it did against the target dummy earlier.
Yeah.
And so it is not a guaranteed success. Tier 3 units used to feel that way, right? But until we get 6 warlord even, right? This Katarina is gonna be pretty light in terms of HP.
Notably, this is a fortune chosen Katarina, and it's being committed to tier 3 right now. That's pretty awkward moving forward in the future, where you're not really ever going to be able to achieve 9 Warlord reliably, and 6 is even going to be difficult to at that point in the game. I don't think you really need 4 Assassin in if you're Laplace. This Akali one, not really doing anything. The Talon one, also not really doing anything. And honestly, the 4 Assassin buff from 2, in my opinion, doesn't really do too much. It's just kind of a couple of useless units there. Laplace is going to be saving up, it looks like, to go to level 8, but I think a lot of changes have to happen to this comp for it to actually scale well into the late game, because especially the cat items are just not going to be there.
This might be the first time all 6 people make it to this carousel, or all 8 people make it to the carousel. Drownedgood
Yep.
does need to win a couple more rounds. And that's the other thing about Katarina, too. Doesn't matter what star she is, if she CC'd to Oblivion, right? And if you can't attack, you're not going to kill anybody, right? And if the game was later, or if that was a different person, right? Riku's not in a very strong place right now. That Katarina is not going to be looking good at all. But we have so much money right now, and we have a 3-star Katarina fortune chosen, so we are locked in, I think, at this point, for fortune jail, or we just kind of give up fortune, keep the cat. I don't think you do that, as you can just make money for the rest of the game, but eventually this cat is going to need some type of QSS or even trap claw to make it to that cast in general, because you're already seeing this cat get CC'd a lot.
Yeah, I'm even gonna be a bit critical, I think, of the level 8 transition, or rather lack thereof here. Still 4 assassins in, and the Orin 1 is what goes in, but Orin actually doesn't provide anything really for Laplace. Sure, if Orin happens to get ult off, it's going to be solid, but there's no guarantee for at least the second part of it to go off. Maybe the first part is likely. But at this point in the game, having to wait 4 rounds for an artifact is going to be pretty long. You barely won that round. Surely there's stronger players going to be in the lobby. Riku actually falling there pretty early as well. Actually in 8th place at the end of the day there. But yeah, Laplace in a rough spot. Gonna need to see some more changes there on that board before it goes well. But that's a mage! Shyvana!
Oh my god! Oh my god! Khroen! Khroen, it happened! Khroen, it happened! I said it would! My predictions today have been on point, my friend. Mage, Shyvana, at tier 3. It's gonna have approximately, and I'm not joking here, close to 8k HP by the time it ults twice. And it's got declaw. So this thing is the real deal, my friend. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna go over here. Nope, just kidding. Gonna hop over here. It seems like they took the Mage Elise and just added good to it.
Yeah.
And it's still not that great. Still almost lost, but was amazing to watch, wasn't it?
Amazing is a word for it, Boop. I'm happy we see it for your sake. I'm concerned for Gunmay being at 4 HP, level 7, and that Mage Shyvana is the only thing keeping him in this game right now. There's 6 Dragon Soul, there's the Shyvana 3. Can Gunmay win another round? I don't know. On the other side, though, from IceBarriers, we did see our first Aurelion Soul Elderwood composition here. 8 Elderwoods there, with double Hodge Elderwood Spat. Double Hodge, very meh of items, in my opinion. But hey, at least we're seeing some representation for the ASOL Elderwood composition here, finally.
Finally, right? So we can talk about it. It's kind of like what everyone was talking about before today, right? I think I was ready to see something totally different, but this is a little bit closer to what I thought I would see, right? We have 6 Dragon Souls, we have a couple mages, right? Outside of the mage Shyvana, like this, the Olaf, the Swain, we actually haven't really seen many Spirit Assassin players either, which is another really good ladder comp.
No. We saw one of them, I think, in game 1.
Yeah, in game 1, but I really haven't seen it. It's been warlords, it's been brawlers. That's pretty much been the big thing in the your spattering of sharpshooters and duelists so far.
That's shyvana.
It's so awkward. Not gonna win any triple jump gold medals. Anytime soon. But you know, the effort is there. The best is when the shyvana jumps and then jumps into the back line of the other team, or like if you put an assassin spat, a mage spat, and like whatever on, on the shyvana, so it jumps and then jumps and jumps again. That's really
Such
fun.
an amalgamation of just shyvana with nothing that she should ever really possess.
Yeah, yeah. You know, if you want your shyvana to look like Kindred real quick, that's how you do it.
Oh man, now I kind of want to see it, but I also kind of don't want to see it at the same time. We get to see Mage at least, and she jumps, and then she's like, "Nope, just getting jukes." Jump somewhere else. I wonder if she'll actually like juke any abilities with that. I'll have to keep an eye on if that actually
Maybe,
occurs.
probably. I mean, a Nidalee spear potentially.
Yeah, if Nilly even will spear that fast, because shyvana's in the front line. She's getting a lot of that mana pretty quick on, especially right here. Maybe gonna get kicked by Lee Sin here. Yep, there she goes. That will be it here for Gunmay and the Bridge shyvana in Game 3. I hope you all enjoyed while that lasted, because we will see no more of it as Gunmay's out in 7th place.
That was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed watching that. I'm gonna send a personal message to Gunmay and say, at the beginning of the day, I said I hope to see a Mage shyvana, and we did, and we actually saw exactly why it's not that good. Raw HP at the beginning of the game is great. You know, you see it with the rest of the brawlers, but raw HP a little later, especially when people are starting to do percent health, not as good. As Laplace, who's actually been having himself quite a day, doing it quite good. Also, Infernix, I think it might be time to start talking about the record.
Yeah, 69 HP on a win streak right now. Definitely time to talk about the record right here. And Infernix in such a good spot for it. And like, oh man, I just want to take a moment to appreciate how good, how like beautiful this board is. Like, not only is it just a good board, but Infernix plays through the early game so well with items like they slammed Ionic Spark in Giant Slayer, right? Giant Slayer solid. We don't really see much Ionic Spark anymore, but it's what they needed to get through the early game with such an advantage that they're going to be able to push level 9 soon, still have a good comp. Like the pivot is still there with what? Like we have a duelist chosen. What even is the chosen on the board right now? I can't even see. Oh, is it Tryndamere? Yeah, it's Tryndamere. But then having 4 Sharpshooters in the back line, and they're still like the items aren't going to be perfect for all of them, but they do the job. Might be a loss here to Numano. Numano is strong at this point, but maybe not, as Samira is going to do Samira things.
This is legitimately really close. Okay,
oh,
Jesus,
10.7k damage on that Samira. Deathblade GA Hodge. That is the power of Samira with 4 sharpshooters, with 3 slayers. Like, what Numano has to say. Oh no.
Oh, that's you're not supposed to say this word on a broadcast, but I'm gonna say it. That's tilting. That is straight up tilting. To see a tier 1 shyvana, at least you've got the Slayer bonus, right? So like there's a little bit of an excuse. Excuse me. So the other thing that I want you guys to notice too is exactly what we talked about Numano earlier, how flexible Numano likes to play. 4 Divine, 2 Death, 2 Mystic, 2 Enlighten, 2 Spirit, 2 Executioner, 2 Siphoner, right? 2 Vanguard. This could become anything or finish like this. And this is the Numano style, which just isn't as good right now in terms of raw numbers, I feel like, when it comes to these comps. As we'll see if we're going to be able to win this out. That Nasus is so good. And so, yeah, Nasus is actually going to help out this Kale. And Numano went out on another round and to get his first top 4 of the day.
Yeah, I was going to say, Numano maybe seems a little tilt here. But okay, not only wins that round, makes in the top 4, but gets the Kale too. And this is now suddenly a composition that can get into first place. It's going to be quite the ordeal. Go up against Infernix, so we might have to settle with top 2. But hey, still, we're doing pretty solid here. Also, the first Aurelian Soul comp of the day is in top 4 as well there. IceBarriers on a win streak, 7 HP here. So good to see that it's not, we're not talking about it for no reason, right? The composition it can still perform very, very well. Might see elimination here, but a great Zephyr by Numano onto Laplace's Katarina.
Zephyr. Remember when we also mentioned that Zephyr is one of the highest scaling items into the late game? That is why.
Yeah.
That Katarina is triple frozen heart as well. That Katarina is unavailable for the beginning of that fight. Ults at that moment, and because of that, Zephyr, Numano is able to take them down. Double elimination actually has to go to the triple tiebreaker, and it looks like Laplace is going to get third.
Yeah. Laplace gets
And
third,
then
fourth.
So Infernix, guys, actually is on record-breaking pace right now.
Yes.
Just so everyone knows. So 36 points, which is 3 firsts and a third, I believe, is where we stand, or 2 firsts, a second, and a third is where we stand on the record. Or however, we got it. 36 points. It's been done a couple times.
2 firsts, 2 seconds, or initially.
Yeah, it's been done a couple times. I believe Numano has tied it before. I also believe Sleet was the first person to get 36 a while ago. I think that was in set 2. And hasn't been broken since then. So right now, Infernix on track, currently has 28 points, on track to break that record. At least 28 points, at least.
Yeah, and it's, oh boy, if Infernix gets first here, which, I mean, let's look at the fight here, actually, how this all breaks down. There is a Yone 2 now for Infernix. Numano's Kale with the Lee Sin is doing a lot of work, however, but the Samira is still alive. You can't count out a Samira until she actually falls. Narrowly doesn't get the ult off in time. So Numano seems stronger right now. This could be Numano's first win of the day. A lot of HP to work through, though, on Infernix's side. He's still at 50. Like, Infernix just plays the game so efficiently throughout all stages of the game that it's just such an advantage when we get to this point. Like, 1 or 2 bad losses for Numano, and it's lights out.
This is what happens when you develop a very strong early game, right? Which actually hasn't been very pushed for so far in any of these lobbies. A lot of people focusing most of their power on the mid game, which is something that we actually don't say very often. As your warlord comps and stuff peak around that time, like the 3-3 to like 4-3 area. As this Lee Sin now with that gargoyle stone plate is going to throw out a target dummy, then get juggled by that Azir. Infernix is going to be able to take out Numano this time around. There should be one more round. Yeah, what was the difference there, Khroen? Why was that so much more dominating?
Samira positioning right there. Samira leapt into such a good spot. That first ultimate wasn't really CC'd or taken care of there. The Lee Sin fell before he got to have much value there, and there was nothing left with the kill in the corner. 2 minutes still left alive. I think it was a bit of positioning there for Infernix as well. Infernix actually last second swapped the Samira to definitely not get Zephyr. Numano tried to anticipate it, move the Nasus 1 space to the right, but caught the Sivir instead of the Samira there. Maybe thought that it was going to be switched with the Sivir instead.
Okay, so Sivir 3, not really something that you see very often, but the big thing about Sivir 3, not necessarily the attack damage, but that attack speed buff, I believe is like 75%, or something crazy like that. And that is a huge deal for someone like another sharpshooter or someone who's auto attack based just in general. Another really great way to get your Kale going. I forget if we're running Kale on the other side, blanking on it real quick. Nope, it's just even the Azir is going to really benefit from that attack speed. And so the attack speed's coming from spirits from Numano. No one really building attack speed items. We're getting it from our units instead.
Here we go. The Zephyr swap here. But no, Samira's going to move to the other side. Numano doesn't even get to put the Zephyr on the board there. Oh, no. And it's Samira 2 now. This is looking so tragic for Numano.
Okay, so Samira actually going to get his GA procced and kill everyone else.
Yeah, the kill's still up, but no, it's just too much, too powerful there on the side of Infernix. That is, I believe, the first time we have seen 3 first places in a row from a player, and Infernix is on track to break the record with either a second place or a first place in the next game.
Or
both
third.
of those would be third would. Oh yeah, or third actually. Yeah, exactly. That would be 1 point above. With a fourth, it would tie it. But with a first, second, or third, it would break the record. That is crazy.
However, fourth lobbies have not been friendly very often to the lobby leader when it comes
True.
through here. Like once you get to the point of not only, I mean, you've pretty much locked up the win, right? I believe second place is 19 points and
Yeah,
you're
you
down
actually
30.
can't
Yeah,
lose
so
if
you
you're in
can't
Phoenix
lose,
right
right?
now.
You could get eighth,
That's
so
so funny.
you're literally playing for the record, right? So you have to get a top 4. So a general top 4 comp might be nice for Infernix right now, but everyone else trying to get into the top 3 is going to be completely okay with getting you out of there, right? And so you gotta stay focused, right? You've won, you've
Yeah.
already won, but you get to make history if you win again, right?
Mhm.
No one will ever beat a 4-time lobby winner unless we add another lobby, right? That will
Yeah,
forever
right?
be the record. So I say
Yeah.
go for it. You know what I mean? You can go crazy this game if you want to. There's literally, outside of not getting the record, no downside
Yeah.
to running whatever you want on this particular matchup. I want to see the record get broken personally. I think Sleet's had it for a little too long.
Oh man, I see it in Vertica chat there. Monka W, don't put pressure on me. You've already won, no pressure at all. Play the game like you've been playing throughout the rest of the 3. It's all good. We're just here to watch and criticize every move. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Play like you've been doing. You're fine right now.
Exactly.
It's been a long time that we've had someone that was already locked in for a win after 3 games.
I think it was Numano. It were Hobos. It was one of the two.
Yeah.
No, it was the week before Hobos joined Numano. They had their kind of back and forth for 6 weeks or so.
Mhm.
Numano, I think, on his very first week, hit 36 points. And won that lobby.
Yeah.
No, it might have been Sphinx, actually, who did it from a while ago. Because Sphinx was here
Yeah.
for about 7 weeks in a row and
Mhm.
only won once
Yeah.
during that 7 weeks. Doesn't matter. In
It's
the
been a
end,
while.
yeah, it's been a while. We've got a record to break. Will it happen? Will our giant itemed Infernix be able to break the record? Big record might get taken down by some big items. Let's see it happen. But first,
Yeah.
we're going to be looking over at Numano and that cutie little bird there and see what is going on here. A lot of people liking keeper openings. And so Elise, very strong opportunity at the beginning as cultist
Yeah.
can be if you get a cultist, you can just kind of run cultist and see where you go from there.
Elderwood Maokai, though, is going to be tempting. Got a Tom Kench in the shop there as well. Gonna take the Tom Kench, probably only take the Maokai if there's a bunch of gold that's picked up here. Maybe even not at that point, honestly. Picks up a Diana, though, because that still could be a direction to go. We'll see though what drops from here. As I wait with bated breath. I always really like over focusing on like what items people get early because it like tells so much of the pace of the game if they're gonna slam anything, what they're looking
Ooh,
for, etc., etc. Divine Wukong in the shop there, but either a GA,
okay.
Giant Slayer, or a Titan's Resolve. All solid items, but you're probably not gonna want to slam anything besides maybe a GA.
You
We'll see what
could
Mono
slam a
decides.
Titans on a Diana.
Yeah,
Like
that's
if
true
it,
too.
if you get 2 more Dianas, say in your next shot, then yeah, I think slam the Titans
Yeah,
on
I
the
would agree.
Diana. Or the GA. I honestly think it's a little bit of a tough choice. GA is so strong. That's part of the reason why at the very beginning of today you said Chain Vest is such a big opening item opportunity because you're seeing every carry with a GA right now. In set 4, every carry had a QSS. This time, this time around, it's GA.
Yep.
Every Kale has a GA on it so far. We haven't seen any Zayas. Well, we saw one Zaya on a 3 Executioner comp that ended up losing, I think, in 6th or 7th place.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, very, very interesting kind of day. Not a ton of variability in terms of our top
Mhm.
4 comps. They have been the static comps with a little bit of variety when it came to Numano in that last game. But definitely for the first 2 lobbies, our static comps are reigning supreme.
Oh boy, this is a choice here from Numano. I want to quickly go over that. Numano had a few options here. Could have sold up 10 gold, stayed on level 3, and try to econ up, but as we know, players are playing very aggressively in the beginning of set 4.5 here. So aggressively that Numano actually opts to take a sharpshooter chosen in Italy, one that you definitely will not keep going later on into the game, but just going to be trying to play the best board with it. Numano, while trying to play best board, has also opted not to put any items. Now puts on the GA on Italy, which wasn't even necessary. It looked a little close there towards the end, but GA nonetheless here for Numano. Also, while I've talked about, GA being a really good item for this set, we both talked about it, GA is still one of those items that you really want to hopefully get your core DPS item built before your GA. You'll want GA, but not aggressively early, because where is the rest of the damage coming from, right? That will only provide you a little bit of that attack damage from the BF sword used to build it. You're not going to have too much more going for your Nidalee here besides just being a sharpshooter chosen Nidalee at this point in the game.
One of the best item holders in the game as well. And sometimes I like putting my sharpshooter chosen Nidalee in because it's like, someone many moons ago while teaching me TFT said, don't form relationships with your units, right? I say that all the time, and for some reason I have no problem selling a chosen Italy, even at even at tier 3. The other units, for some reason, especially Teemo, for some reason I'm like, and I hate Yordle, but I'm like, it hurts, right? You like see these units succeed, and then eventually you see them go past their prime, and you have to say, you know what, we have to move on without you. And then sell them. I think the Nidalee is just so obviously a temporary unit. I like using her, and I think if you're beginning to play, right, putting your initial item carrier and just knowing, you know what, I'm gonna sell this later, even if it might not be a high percentage play, might actually help you at the game in the long run. So you can get used to. A lot of people will sell a whole unit just to get a Zephyr off. In the late game, right? It doesn't matter about how strong that unit is. You got to move that Zephyr, and so you just got to be okay with selling these units, no matter how strong they may be right now.
Yeah, some of the best players in the game do that very often. Sell a unit in the end game just to get the Zephyr off, move the Zephyr around, because that's going to be a lot more valuable. You're going to have a higher percentage chance to win over just being married to having that unit in, and just being like, okay, the unit's in. What do I focus on next? But sometimes you got to think about all that different stuff there. Numano still being on 100 HP right now, as well as IceBarriers. IceBarriers, the player who did end up actually running the Elderwood ASOL composition in the last game. And there's a spatula on the stage 2 carousel here. Interestingly enough, Riku thinks about it, hesitates, does end up grabbing it though. I have to keep track of what that builds into in the future.
I really want to see an assassin comp kind of go through. It's a top 4 comp right now, I would say, because it's spirit based and it just doesn't have any of that heavy hitting late game potential. But I wonder if some comps are just taking too long to get to, and that's why we're dying so quickly, right? The meta of Fight Night today has slowed down a lot already, right? Even here. Remember last time we were at 3-1, there was someone at like 60 something HP. It was nuts. But now everyone's already figured out how each other are playing. When you play the same 7 people every single lobby, you can start adjusting accordingly. I think that's what Numano is doing. I wonder if anyone else is doing the same thing, but we're not seeing absolute devastation to HP bars throughout the entirety of these rounds. One thing that Numano is doing is spending quite aggressively, which you're gonna do when you're leading a lobby like this. It's just, when do you stop, right? When do you say, okay, I'm done spending, I need to invest, right? It's all, again, top of mind right now. So Numano now I think is good to invest, but eventually we're gonna have to hold and wait and potentially lose a good amount of HP to get stronger even later. But again, we don't know if we'll even get to that point of the game.
HP is a resource, gotta hold the line sometimes. Numano still being at 100 HP on that win streak right now. There is the potential of 3 warlords with that Garen in, but values the extra frontline of an upgraded Fiora in there as well. And with the enlightened bonus, she'll be able to mitigate a lot of damage when she goes invulnerable with that riposte, have some CC thrown out there. So probably agree that is more valuable at this stage of the game. Even like Numano likes to do, especially at all points in the game, move around that positioning, even if it is very slight, to just net the highest chance of winning. We saw a lot of improvement coming out from Numano, coming from the first couple of games into the last game there, game 3, and definitely going to be looking to repeat that performance, especially with a 5 win streak going into Krugs. A really, really good start there.
And I would love to see where Infernix is right now, if we can. That is kind of the story of the lobby today. Is we only need a 4th to tie the record. No pressure. We did mention in chat that he noticed that we were talking about it.
Yeah.
And so really interested there. The other thing I'm really interested in is for some reason, players like not for some reason because I'm one of these players. I love playing spoiler when it comes to games like this, right? I might be out of it, but I can ruin your day too. And so I'm a great person. And
I was gonna
so
say awful.
yeah, I know, right? So Drownedgood, for example, Laplace, who's actually in the running right now, can
Yeah.
screw the record away. Gunmay looking pretty good. Third place is still up for grabs for pretty much everyone, especially with Numano getting second on that last round. We have pretty good items as
Oh,
well. 2 swords and a
yeah.
cloak.
I-
What?
I'm I would love this actually if I'm Numano. You have one item away from perfect item Olaf. I mean, I play a lot of Olaf nowadays, so I like that. And there is, in fact, going to be a Deathblade Slam here. Put it on the Nidalee, use her as item carrier, sell her off when she gets to be a little bit too useless, but it's still going to be solid right now. Of course, the main storyline here, I would say, is going to be can Infernix break the record? But as well, a little bit of the other ones I think are Laplace being at 19 points right now going into this game. Can they keep it up? If they have a poor placement, then players like Numano or like Gunmay, who have had some not great performances today, a bit of some hit or miss, they actually can make their way into the top two, into the top three, top two to get invited back for next week and to still earn their portion of that prize pool.
Okay.
This close.
You never know with that Nidalee spear,
Yeah.
right? I had a friend last night playing an ARAM, and she was addicted to Nidalee spears. She was Janna, so
Ah,
it was honestly hilarious. Like
I
you ever
bet.
just have one of those days where you get hit by every Morgana binding, or like
Yeah,
you know what I mean, where you just can't avoid any of the skill shots.
I
Oh,
felt that. I felt
I
that.
know.
It was just, oh man.
I just
Yeah.
have never seen someone get so bullied by Nidalee before. It was absolutely hilarious. So this is a little bit of payback, in my opinion, for my bud. She probably felt good about seeing that Nidalee get taken down by that Yasuo. And we actually do get to see a Titan's Resolve. Titan's Resolve seems to be a like player specific choice. I don't know if you've noticed that about that item. Some players really like this item and some players never build it. And so whenever you have the opportunity to build it on a duelist, for example, I say try it, especially with a
Yeah.
Diana. It's moderately going to scale into the late game. Uh, Rounds tend to not last a lot of time in the late game to hit 25 and then get value. You're going to find most of the value around now. And for like the next 5 rounds, I would say. But try it. I think Diana with Titan's Resolve and Yasuo with Titan's Resolve are two of the best choices you can make if that's the choice you have to make.
I think Titan's Resolve is a very, very good item. And if you've played TFT for multiple sets, I think you should know that it's a good item. Even with it back when mech was a thing. You know how strong that it can get when it stacks up. Like if you put it on a Yasuo right now or a Diana or there's another one I was thinking of as well, but there's a few units that can utilize the item very, very, very well, I think. Katarina actually was the other one that we did see a bit of today, and I think it is very, very solid. But going for Duelists here is Laplace, and there is another player contesting Duelists as well, so that made Laplace actually roll down a lot of gold, hyper rolling even, in fact, as opposed to slow rolling, which nearly everybody does nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So that's super, super interesting to me. Laplace hasn't been punished for not hitting the Yasuo 3 yet, is still on a win streak. However, the gold generation is just not going to be there. You have to be able to keep this win streak up to make back the gold that you lost for this.
Whew, man, a lot to do, huh?
Yep.
So
Yep.
let's take a moment to kind of take the macro of what's happening right now, right?
Sure.
Because Infernix is in first place right now, and it
Yeah.
is developing quite a lead over the rest of the lobby, right? Not over second, but has 12 points over IceBarriers, 12 points over fourth place, and then a little bit more
Oof.
from fifth place. And remember, fourth place is all we need for that. Oh, tier 3 Yasuo. The place is going to be here
Yep.
for a while. And
Uh-huh.
so maybe the 4 wins in a row might not happen, as tier 3 Yasuo this early on is going to delete HP from a lot of these players. So things are looking a little bit more not as solid
Yeah,
right now for
definitely.
Infernix, especially with Laplace finding that Yasuo 3. That's going to pretty much eliminate the rest of the Duelist players. You need that Yasuo 3. Two people can find it, but it can be very hard to get it if you aren't the first one to find it yourself. And with Rico already at 46 points, Gunmay at 62, Gunmay currently in third place right now. So a seventh place from Gunmay will most likely eliminate him from the top
Yeah.
three. This is pretty crazy stuff. Even though we know who first place is, we do not know who the rest of the lobby is. And 6 out of 7 people that are remaining can make it into that third spot.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I wanted to, take a moment a bit earlier to kind of say that there's multiple storylines that are going on right now. They're equally as hype. People breaking into the top three, maybe players like Gunmay who are so strong, potentially even dropping from there, is going to be so huge that actually happens. The implications of are these new players, showing up here, going to be ones to match those of the greats. Infernix here already showing up in previous weeks and showing that they can have a solid run, having an immaculate run right now. And it's going to come down to, can Infernix dodge the strong people, primarily Laplace right now, with that Yasuo 3? If that matchup is dodged and Infernix can keep up the same play style with having that early HP advantage with a strong board, I would not be surprised if it's another win at the most, but at the very least a top 3 to break the record.
I think it's going to happen. My gut is telling me that it's going to happen.
I think it's likely as well.
Oh
Infernix
no.
did lose the
Oh
round.
no, I'm so sorry.
I
Like
wonder
at this point, it's
who it
my fault.
was.
If he doesn't, it's my fault. I I will take the blame there. Gunmay though needs to find some wins. Picking up that Spirit team though, I don't think it's a bad idea. Especially if you need to get some wins on the board. You already have a sharpshooter on the board. We just haven't been able to see our regular old Gunmay Olaf player so far. It just really hasn't happened. Dragonstill's been
Yeah,
moderately non-existent. Gunmay the only one running it when we got the dancing dragon in Shyvana that made Shyvana and got 7th. So we're kind of looking very similar in team comp right now as we go Slayer. I think we're
okay.
going to go straight Olaf right now, though, is what it's looking like.
Yeah, I would think so. If you're in Gunmay's position right now, I think you sell the Tristana, you make the Deathblade and the Runans on that Olaf, and you just go for it. Like maybe, okay, yeah, Olaf 2, 100%. That's what's gonna happen. Even could just say, YOLO and put a Hodge on there as well. Just not even go for the GA. Because if you're Gunmay, you're pretty low HP right now. It's a little unfortunate. You hit Olaf 2 at this point in the game, though, so you can recover. Maybe you don't even need to slam the Hodge, actually. Maybe it's a bit overreaction. I'm not honestly 100% sure on that regard, but it looks like he's going to be playing the patient game for now, and I think overall I do like this decision here from Gunmay.
I do too, because he's getting to a place where he can be familiar with what he's running, right? I think Gunmay is one of those people who gets affected by piloting a comp that he's not used to the most. Uh,
Yeah,
he can be flexible, but I think you can tell when Gunmay is comfortable versus when he's not,
true.
right?
I
Uh,
definitely agree with that, yeah.
yeah, and so he seems more comfortable now. I mean, anyone's going to be comfortable with a, Deathblade from its Hurricane Olaf with the Zeeks on the other side too. I mean, this Olaf
Yeah,
is going to crush it. But this is exactly the type of comp that Gunmay is attracted to as a player, right? So it's good to see him try to use it in this particular lobby. But our power level is low. We haven't been able to find the units, but at least we have that Olaf that should carry us for a bit.
Gunmay is going to be relatively early on the next carousel pick as well. There's only 2 more rounds to go, and I think May is shaping up to be second pick, maybe third pick if a lot of other players are starting to take a lot of damage, but probably second pick here. This Olaf at this point is just going to tear through everyone else's composition here. Riku on the other side there, struggling real hard, dropping down to 12 HP right now. That's pretty fast. Could even fall before Raptors.
Yikers.
Yep.
That stinks. That man, these are the comps that I want to watch. You know, you know what I mean? Because these are the comps that have that pop off potential, right? The
Mhm.
multi axe on the Darius, for example, right? The Olaf just getting to your face and doing Viking stuff, right? That's what these comps are about, and we'll get to see them eventually. But as of right now, it's definitely been more auto attack based carries. We saw one Mage player didn't do that great, and you know, it's been more of this what you're seeing on Laplace's side, which is that beautiful Yasuo there. Giant
Ooh.
Slayer is an interesting choice, but with so many brawlers and so many high HP targets, I see why the decision was made to put it on.
Yeah, Gunmay, the Olaf there even falling, getting stuck on the Jax who's counter-striking, and the Callista with the Duelists and the Rage Blade just pumped far too many spears into Olaf and hit the Rend. Olaf was executed. Gunmay dropping to 35 HP right now. There is going to be a sword. Gunmay is second pick. We'll see if he's able to grab that. Riku grabbing the tier, looking, scouting around. I can't tell if Gunmay got the sword. Or is it? Yeah, Gunmay did get the sword. Okay, cool. So gonna go for the GA. Has perfect items, Olaf. See if he's able to last with this in mind.
And Riku is the first to be on that elimination station
Yeah.
right now. Might have to get a ticket and leave here, which is very interesting as Riku made a splash the first time they were there. I believe won 2 weeks in a
Yeah.
row. Then fell victim to the 3-week curse right after. Oh, I was about to say, did nothing pop out of the lantern?
Yeah, it was a little laggy there.
But yes, we. Oh, it's a loaded dice. Your favorite.
Oh boy. Okay, what implications does that have for Riku here? Honestly, not. Oh, actually, a lot because Riku is 2 Nikos away from a Nico 3. There is kind of like a solved formula of like when you should optimally use loaded dice. I'm not sure exactly offhand what the most optimal timing to use to get a Nico there, but I'm sure that you can readily find that. I'll actually fact check myself here soon because I'm curious for Riku's sake.
I hope to see more of Riku in this lobby. Dying before Raptors is a huge feels bad for any TFT player, and right now we're actually seeing the benefit and how strong a Sunfire Cape is. By
Hmm.
the way, if there were a couple more units on the board, that Sunfire Cape would have eaten through that Sedge, potentially that Akali, but there wasn't enough there. That loaded dice did not get us a tier 3 unit, but did get us
One more.
close.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
And there we have it. Tier 3 Nico. Here we go with that fabled buff. That means it is going to be ripping apart a lot of HP. Usually you want to see a jeweled gauntlet, but with the Vanguard spat on it, that Nico also going to be a little bit like Star Guardian Nico, which was a tank back in the day.
Yeah,
So we should be
definitely.
able to get at least 3 casts off, especially with this blue buff. 3 casts means we win, 2 casts most likely means we lose.
Let's see. The first cast is good. That's so much damage already popping the Kindred GA there. And Numano actually just playing the Kindred
Oh,
as an
2
item
wins 1 again.
holder. Yeah, and it still has 50 gold, level 8 right there. Maybe gonna go to level 9. Maybe just rolls it all down after round 5-1. But I was looking it up, fact checking. For loaded dice to have the most optimal chances, it's level 8 using it on a Nautilus is 35% to see one in the shop per slot there. And for level 7, it's still good, it's still 30%. And so yeah, Riku used one at level 7 on the Nautilus and did find one. Fortunately, I actually found the last one. That was real scary there for a second, but did for his sake end up getting that tier 3 Nico, which still is super strong. Like we were talking a bit about like the Vanguard Mystic composition, how like it might not be quite as good as some other compositions in the game, but utilizing it very, very well, I think,
Mhm.
especially when you're hitting the Nico 3.
Well, if you're not facing ASOLs, right? Because I think we're gonna finish today without a single Elderwood comp.
Yeah. We had one,
There's
we had
no.
one.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. If there's really no ASOLs and Mage comps to deal with, the Mystic is inherently not as good, right? You're going to get value out of it. You always get value out of Mystic, but I mean, versus an ASOL versus someone like Yasuo, right? It's not going to be that much of a difference. The Vanguards are definitely going to be helping against the other things, but with what we have right now, you're not going to even win a war of attrition that frequently, especially against Duelists at tier 3. We are going to potentially see it happen. No, this Jax is huge. Another Titan's Resolve, by the way, on this unit.
Yeah, a solid one, I think, to hold that item. Very interesting looking at Numano's state of the game here. I think that last round, which was the roll down round on 5-1, Numano was a lot slower than normally we would see. I think these rolls didn't come through as quickly as I would expect. The units were held on bench longer than they probably should be. Numano probably could have rolled to find some more upgrades there to save HP, and all the HP matters at this point in the game if you're Numano, especially when it's not guaranteed that you'll get into the top 3 or top 2 to be invited back. Of course, you're not going to win because Infernix is just too nuts at the game, but even still, all the HP matters at this point.
HP is a HP is a currency, right?
Mhm.
So it is so important to look at it as such. If you're just
Yeah.
using it as a lifeline, you might focus too hard on winning. And that is by far the biggest folly that I see even gold players get into is focusing so hard on winning every single round, right? It's not going to happen. I mean, even some of the best players in the world haven't gotten a 100 win game, right? It's
Yeah.
just it's hard. It's hard to do. It's harder. I think it's harder to win by 100 than it is to lose before chickens, right? So anyway,
Yeah.
I think you know what I mean. The
I
folly
definitely
is
agree.
you don't want to invest in winning every single round, right? So when you're
Yeah.
seeing 29 HP, even at the 1 HP from Riku, that is the sign to say, okay, we're done investing. Let's, buy, 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 right? And they might lose still, or they might be able to turn it around. Gunmay was able to buy a lot. No, only 10 gold right now, but was able to tier 2 that Darius. We have a little bit more power on that Olaf. We just got to get to that Kale eventually. And the pathing for this Olaf is worst case scenario when it comes to that. Visited everyone else first, but we were able to get to that Kale because it was not a Kale 2.
Yeah. Going back to your 100 HP and winning the 100 HP thing, I'm pretty confident saying it is objectively wrong to try to win a game with 100 HP still left. If you try to force that and not lose a single round, you're going to be sacrificing strength that you could be, um, saving up to get in the later on stages of the game. HP is a resource you said a lot, and it's for a very good reason there. So yeah, that's why we don't see it quite often at all, and some of the best players don't even reach that. Meechygnarko does drop in 8th place here, and Riku is on 1 HP, narrowly on the brink of elimination.
So, Khroen, remember when we saw that Yasuo 3 and we're like, okay, the lobby has been accelerated,
Yep.
right? And it has. Look at what's happened.
Mhm.
Everyone on 2 or 3 rounds right now. So, except for Laplace, but Infernix is in 4th place. I hope
Yeah.
to God I did not jinx him. I will
Yeah, you
actually
already
feel
did,
bad.
Boop. It's you jinxed.
I will legitimately feel bad about it. Like I will take um all fault for if that happens. So maybe if I think that way, we can will him into something that no one else has done before.
Yeah. Okay, Riku here getting a couple spirits in. Gonna be not the best, but also not the worst. Talked about spirit before being just a solid trait to splash in there. It's going to be useful. Diana might not cast, but Yumi certainly will. Move in positioning a little bit here. But yeah, Infernix, I think it's the lowest HP they've been at this point in the game in a bit.
Hmm
26 right now. Laplace did indeed accelerate the lobby. Gunmay, a player on a win streak here. Let's see how Riku faces up against Numano.
Numano. Probably on our fight night word cloud is the biggest word of 2020. Oh man, that Nico though is absolutely insane. It's gonna need it is gonna need to get pulled out of the corner, right? One ult seems to be enough. It is pretty much doing the same amount of damage as a jeweled gauntlet spirit bomb right now, I think, for
Mhm.
comparison. And so it's functioning in the same capacity. And we've just got raw damage with that Rabadon's, no jeweled gauntlet even. So that means that the damage could even be higher if you're doing best in slot with this Nico. But I feel like it only happens with the Fabled buff, with the tier 3. So we have our win condition right now. But unfortunately, we're only at 1 HP. So any loss, any counter to this, like if someone's able to break through this front line really, really quickly. Let's see what IceBarriers is running. A tier 2 Kale might be able to do just that.
Yeah, this composition from IceBarrier pretty solid there. Having a Locket and Damerlos on the Morgana as well. Thieves Gloves on the Kindred, but man, this Nico damage okay, it does take out Kale. This is one of those awkward fights where there's like just the tanks left at the end. Janus shields coming through to make the difference here, or not. I mean,
I
there's
think
still a
the
huge drop
Nautilus has
in.
got it. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the Nautilus has got it, no problem, actually. We might
You're
have to
definitely
draw
right
this
here.
out real quick. But yeah, so we get there.
Okay.
Riku is going to survive another round, and Phoenix is in 4th.
And
Numano
Phoenix
has
won the
2
first
HP
round in a
lead.
long time. And Phoenix lost like the last like 3 or 4 rounds. Finally won a round there.
Yep, Laplace is pretty much at like I would say like 20% chance to win the lobby right now based off of just HP attrition. Has a lot more economy to get stronger, but with Duelists, you can cap out a little bit quicker than some other comps can until you get your Shens and your Yones, for example, so you can get to that Adept splash. That's really going to be beneficial for our Duelist player. And again, another static comp doing very, very well at the top of the leaderboard. Same thing with Gunmay, I believe, running Slayers and Dragon Souls. So just go with those traits on the side. If you're, again, learning this game, right? We've seen it through 4 lobbies at 4 very highly ranked people in this game do it, and it's static comps, right? No Bill Gates, no Elderwood. One Elderwood, one Mage comp throughout the entirety of today. Things have already changed a lot. It reminds me of when Set 4 just came out and everyone was like, Bonky Kong is overpowered, everybody. Right? And then it was like, what, flavor of the week? Not even the flavor of the month.
Yeah.
So we're still figuring it out as we get an assassin at least, Leasassin.
Leasassin, that works. That works. Gonna be Laplace though, going up against Numano could be the last round of Numano's tournament run, but the Kale survives in the back line. Jack's kicked into the corner, and that's going to be Numano hanging on. And
I'm so sorry.
Is out in 6th place. Still going to be our winner for Fight Night Rising tonight, but will not be breaking any records here tonight. Boop, what do you got to say?
I'm so sorry. I called it when you were at 96 HP, and the second I saw you lose that round, I was like, oh no. You know what I mean? Where it was just like, oh no. Like, I have no context or information to make this opinion, but I kind of felt like this might happen. Oh, no, my gut was telling me at that time that Infernix would finish in the top 4, but no, we're going to finish in 6th place instead. The 4th lobby curse strikes once more. Defeats the 3-week curse, but doesn't get past the second one.
There's too many curses. It's just, you can't get over all of them. All the curses are you're doing even too. Like, it's crazy.
I'm a great person. What can I say? I'm really fun to hang out with. Riku is going to fall.
Yeah. Oh man, what has happened here? Numano in 5th, it looked like there. Yeah, Riku in 4th by 1 HP. That's real heartbreaking for Numano there. Gunmay in 3rd though, solid.
I think that's Gunmay finishing. Gunmay will finish in 3rd, so I think this is done. So it's going to be Infernix in 1st, Laplace in 2nd, and Gunmay in 3rd. It's that is what it's going to be in the top 3. Gunmay lives in that 3rd place spot.
Sure.
Man.
Yeah, really. Yeah, actually, that's like Gunmay's favorite spot to be in.
I know.
It's a solid spot, honestly. It's one that, in my competing days, I found myself in a lot. Kind of 3rd place, just consistent high placement, sort of that kind of play style. But Laplace versus IceBarriers is still going to be going on here in this game. Not going to be concluding in 1 round, needs more than that. But man, these Kales in the corner are just going off. If they're not dealt with fast, they just scale so well into the later portions of the fight.
Reminds me of Master Yi with like RFC, right? Where the longer the fight goes, or Ash, right? You want a longer fight at the end of the day. Right, the Divine is going to make it a lot harder to just burst down that KO, right? Because again, once that KO ults, it's probably in its Divine phase, and so even a stacked Vigor is going to take 50% mitigated damage from that KO. So you've got a good 2 to 5 second period where that KO is just slicing and dicing, and then it's after that where you have to take a gander at where your team is at, right? If you have someone at the KO, you're probably fine. Right? If you haven't gotten to the Kale yet, you're probably not fine. So that's what you're really looking for those Kale 1v1 mechanics.
Yeah, I was looking at the roll down so much. There's a okay. Yeah, buys the Zillion 2 in time. Did not have time to move the Shroud, however, and that is not going to be punished as the Kale's still in the same spot there. 2/2 Zillion, though, is a huge power spike as Laplace's composition features a lot of very strong synergies at their, 4-piece and 3-piece right now, but the Kale still being the problem here. Not going to be dealt with, and we move on to yet another round where duelists are getting outscaled.
Duelists had out. Remember, we did talk about that earlier. I mean, we even got a tier 2, 2 tier 2 5-cost units, right? And it's still not enough to beat this executioner comp from IceBarriers. And
I
straight
think.
what do you
Sorry,
think?
go on. I was gonna say I think that Laplace, if they wanted to win the lobby, rolled a bit too early there. You're probably not gonna fall during this next round. So you could have saved up gold until after the neutral mob, and then on 7-1, roll it down to 0, hit your Callista 3, hit your Yone 2 at that point as well as your Zillion. So just could have saved up, could have been a little bit more greedier there with that money. And I think that's what had to have happened to win the lobby. Now you're gonna have to get lucky with Lee Sin
Yep.
kicking, finding their way to Kale, kicking them out, but it's not looking like that's going to happen. And yeah, Laplace has one more life left, but not a lot of gold to roll these upgrades anymore.
We're probably looking for a Yone 2. We might see them sell the Callistas on the bench potentially for the Yone 2. And we're trying to neuter the Kale in the back line with Adept. I didn't see if it had a QSS on it, but the Adept should. It does
It
not.
doesn't have
So
to,
the Adept should help, right? It didn't that last round. The damage isn't getting there in time, and you can't put the Yasuo in the front line because he gets blown up by Kale. You can't put him in the back line because he gets blown up by Kale, right? And so it is all about getting to the Kale. Remember, if after that Kale ults, you have someone within 2 hexes of that Kale, you've got a chance, right? But if
Oh,
not, if
rolled past the Callista there.
that is the 3rd Callista that he has
Yeah,
rolled past, by the way. So I don't think the Callista is what he's looking for personally, is what
yeah.
my theory is on that.
I would think it should be, however. Yeah, rolls past another one, so definitely just isn't looking for them. Should just sell the rest right now. But is not doing so. Like, you need to upgrade some way. I think the Callista should be what you're looking for here because it has 3 items right now, and these 3 items are actually pretty solid. The Yone 2, even if it's achieved, isn't really going to do all that much, in my opinion. But let's get underway into what could be the last fight of this tournament here.
Oh man, I would have moved the Lee Sin onto the other side, but that is not going to happen. No one near that Kale. This isn't going to be close at all.
Closer than the other fights, actually, a little bit, but yeah, still not close. The KO was still untouched there. Gonna be Laplace falling in second there, and of course, we still know who's gonna win. We came into game number 4 knowing who's gonna win for tonight. It's gonna be Infernix. Still, regardless of, the caster curse there from you, Boop, it's still
I'm
gonna be a
so
nuts
sorry.
performance.
I legitimately feel that. Anyway, Laplace is going to be
Oh,
in second. Look at IceBarriers
yeah,
sneak
that
up all
actually
of a
mattered.
sudden.
That first place,
Huge.
yeah, that first place mattered into getting more points than Gunmay there. If IceBarriers had gotten second, it would have been tied with Gunmay, and I don't know what those tiebreakers would have ended up with,
Oh,
but we're not in that world. Gunmay actually misses out on the top 3.
oh man, maybe we
Sad.
shouldn't have ran that Mage Shyvana, huh? maybe,
Oh
maybe.
no.
I'm a great person. All right, we do have an interview coming up here in just a second. And Vernix, are you there?
Don't think they're in the
Okay, I
call quite
see.
yet,
I
but
see added to the group. But yeah, beautiful play by Infernix. Was very strong, very clean throughout the first 3 lobbies. Said himself that he got a little lost. Might have been the pressure we unintentionally or intentionally piled on near the end of or the beginning of
yeah.
lobby 4. But that was the first 4.5 day of Fight Night Rising. You've got a big tournament tomorrow. But what are you kind of noticing as trends right now?
Yeah. Oh, what's the most trends? Kale, 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 and more kale. I think we can't
Mhm.
help but see that there's just so much of a priority of that unit. I think we do now. Infernix on the line. Infernix, hello, are you there?
Hello. Hello. Can you
Hello.
hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Oh my
Congratulations.
God. No.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm so mad right now.
It's my fault.
No.
It's my
No.
fault.
I mean, hey, either way, you still had a phenomenal night. You had 3 first places in a row, which I think is a record in of itself. I don't think there's anyone else to get 3 firsts in a row here in Finite Rising. So you still got that to write home about. Either way, congratulations. You're going to be in first place, going to be invited back next week, winning $100, all that good stuff. I quickly wanted to get your just overall thoughts on set 4.5. And just the set itself. Like, are you enjoying it? What things do you like, dislike? Just a small kind of summary there.
I think it's fine overall. It reminds me a bit of set 2, and I didn't really like set 2, but I think it has like too many units trying to be carries. Like almost every unit's trying to be a carry. It doesn't have like that many support units. That's the one thing I don't like about it, I think. Yeah, that's about it. But oh man, I fucked up that last game so bad. Oh my god!
You said you got lost, and so
I got so lost.
Explain what getting lost is.
I tried to pivot off of 6 elders into slayers, and it doesn't work. I should have just gone. I should have gone 9. I fucked it up.
Hey, you know what? You get another shot at it next week. And you can't downplay the fact that you won 3 lobbies in a row. So
I mean,
yeah, go for it.
I destroyed the first 3 lobbies. The thing is, I didn't destroy the 4th. That's
recency bias, right? But a lot of things change, right? Remember at the beginning of this set, everyone was like, "Oh, Bonky Kong," and "Oh, Rageblade Janna," right? And now it's definitely the Kale. In a week or two, where do you kind of see the game going? Do you think that there are going to be less carry potential across some of the characters, or what do you want to happen?
I'm not sure you can fix the issue that I mentioned earlier. So, because you can't rework all the units, maybe you can add a bit of support to some of them, like change the ability a little bit. But in general, I think this set, this problem's gonna be there. But I think it can still be fun. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, I was going to add on to that by saying, with that in mind, how are players going to have to adapt? Is it just going to be less skill expression in your mind, or is there kind of a workaround here that's still skill expressive, and how to adapt to the set with less support units?
I think you just need to, before you could slam items and just go for your comp depending on what you hit. But now you just have to slam the items for the carry that you want to go for, and then put them on kind of suboptimal units just to get you there. It's a lot more items specific. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A Runans on a Kindred until you find the shyvana. Yeah.
Yeah, Runans being one of the items that, I mean, it can work out in a couple of units. You mentioned shyvana, Olaf being the other one. Maybe a Talon, but besides that, it kind of feels suboptimal. I definitely feel you on that regard there. Passing it back to Boop, do you have any final questions here for Internix?
Yeah, so my last question for you is where can we find you online? We're and the other thing is this is the first time we've gotten to talk, so tell us a little bit about where you're from, what got you into TFT as well, and where we can track your career.
Career is a little bit
is
a little bit too much.
But, not many people make it past 3 weeks on Fight Night, so I would consider this a career.
I don't know about that. I've been playing TFT from when it came out, basically. I really loved set 1. I kind of didn't like set 2, and then set 3 and set 4 I came back. And I think they're really fun. Even though people hate the chosen mechanic, it's still fun when you're the one high rolling, of course. Yeah. Either way, I'm not streaming or doing anything like that currently, just because I can't at the moment because of COVID and stuff. But you can follow my channel on Twitch, and at some point I'll start streaming when I have the opportunity, the equipment and stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. Congratulations, and we'll see you next week.
Nah, don't congratulate me like that. Last time was nah.
Still almost did it, man.
Right,
you're too hard on yourself.
Next week. All first next week.
All first next week.
All right. Well, that's the expectation now. We'll see you next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh man.
It's
Okay.
actually really interesting
Yeah.
because, hearing that there are too many carries and that, chosen can be unfavorable for some people, there is that other side, right? Where I
Mhm.
think a lot of casual players specifically love the chosen mechanic
Mhm.
and love the current set,
Yeah.
right? So I think what we're really hitting right now is that I think this is the first time the set has ever had like a large enough separation between those two groups of people that I think we're noticing. Right.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm loving it. I like the I like the units and I see where they're coming from, but I think the skill expression does take place in other ways, right? It's not going to be about the pivot anymore. It's going to be about itemization and tempo, right? And whether you think that that's going to be more complicated or less complicated, that's up to you as a player and, of course, the dev team. But in the end, I think set 4.5 is honestly off to an all right start, and we still have a lot of changes to go through. And if there's any dev team that I trust, it's this one. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited to see what we're going to get as the players get better at it too, right?
Of
As you
course.
noticed, a lot of the players died really early today, right? So as the meta slows down a little bit, then it's gonna. I think the skill expression will start showing itself even more.
I agree. And there's a lot to unpack what we just saw in the day, and especially even from that interview as well. Before we sign off, I'm just gonna I quickly want to highlight a couple things from Infernix in that interview. One, I can't help but get kind of like Gunmay vibes with like doing well but still being hard on yourself. Like it's
I
just
thought the exact same thing,
yeah,
Khroen. I'm gonna let you know. I was like, you sound
definitely.
like Gunmay like 6 months ago.
Uh-huh, exactly. And I think that there's definitely a balance to find there. Like, you should be proud of yourself for, getting 3 wins in a row. That's kind of nuts. Like, not many people, if anybody, could say that they've done that here in Fight Night before. But also, it's just you want to improve. You want to get better. You recognize your mistakes and you're going to improve them for next time, or at least that's the goal, right? But also just the set in general, I think as well, something that Infernix brought up a little bit. The chosen mechanic, people are kind of getting tired of it. And I think that, like, personally, I was a little bit feeling like that. And I can definitely see how all the competitors, or not all of them, but how some of the competitors are also going to be feeling that way. But regardless, we're still going to be having more set 4.5 with more chosens going forward into the future. That will be it for us tonight, but we will be back next week with some more Fight Night Rising TFT action. Signing off here are Boop and Khroen. We will see you next time.